Anti-Oedipus, Silver, Silver. Wishes up to tell a penny pings. I can't go like yellow. You know, agent your bites the whistle. Works for.
Here I go, anti-Oedipus.
Yes, it's a William Bristol one these days. So it's still a tongue. Out there.
Here I go, anti-Oedipus.
Ho, ho.
It functions everywhere, sometimes without stopping, sometimes discontinuously. It breathes, it heats, it eats, it shits, it fucks. One mistake if I said the it everywhere. It is machines, not at all metaphorically. Machines of machines with their couplings, their connections. An organ machine is connected with a source machine, one emits a flux which the other cuts. The breast is a machine that produces milk, and the mouth a machine coupled to that one. The mouth of the anorexic hesitates between an eating machine, an anal machine, a talking machine, a breathing machine, deeper machine, asthma, attack. This is why we are all tinkerers, each with their own little machines. An organ machine for an energy machine. There are always flux and cuts. Judge Schreber 5 has divine rays in his ass. Solar anus. And rest assured it works. Judge Schreber feels something, produced of something, and theorized about it. Something is being deduced effects of machines, not metaphors. Of the schizophrenic. It's a better model than the neurotic lying on the couch. A bit of fresh air relationship with the outside. Take the stroll of Lenz into the outdoors. It is different from moments when Lenz finds himself with his good pastor, who forces him to situate himself socially in relation to God, in relation to Father, in relation to Mother. On the contrary, he is in the mountains under the snow with other gods or without God at all, without family, without father or mother, with nature. What does my father want? Can he give me better? Impossible! Leave me alone. Everything is a machine. And three celestial machines, the stars are rainbows, alpine machines, each coupled with those of his body, noise machine. Uninterrupted, idle instrumental. It must feeling of endless bliss to be in contact with the profound life profound to every form. To have a soul for the rocks, metals, water, and plants, to welcome into oneself, as in a dream, every element of nature, like flowers that breathe with the waxing and waning of the moon. Och det landskap gissar where både där I multidagen ned, innan det replies. Krongas can be a chlorophyllin machine or a photosynthesis machine, or at least slip his body as a part into such machines. Lenz put himself before the distinction of man nature, before all the identifications that this distinction conditions. He could not experience nature as nature, but as a process of production. There is no more man nor nature only process that produces the one within the other and couples the machines together. Producing machine, desiring machine everywhere, schizophrenic machines, all generic life. Me and not me, exterior and interior don't mean anything anymore. That was me, Anti-Oedipus. That was me, Anti-Oedipus. The desiring machines. Machines.
Shining on the sea, or shining with all his might. He did his very best to make us see the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd, because it was odd, the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily, because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. It's very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun. The sea was wet as wet could be. The sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. No birds were flying overhead. There were no birds to fly. The carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything.
Well, hello there, everybody. Hello, and welcome to ish reading of Anti-Oedipus, the Quarantine Collective's ongoing reading. As I was just describing to everyone in Discord, one of the challenges of the last week was outside of this reading, I wasn't able to do the follow-up I wanted to be doing and sort of have it keep going. Since we're so early, I wanted to be able to take a little bit more time and really figure out what that weekly format really looks like. We have a lot of people who I know have lots of other questions, lots of other comments. I think it's important as we do this, that the conversation is able to continue outside of this. And Anton, it's exactly that. I don't want to be overstretching myself. There's a couple of things I do want to slightly overstretch myself. I want to be able to host that sort of open house and have those discussions around AO, because I find myself really enjoying that. But beyond that, I want to make sure that what we're building is something that people are able to comment on during the week, that people are able to and feel comfortable with continuing sort of the reading beyond the 2 hours into something more. That didn't happen. And it didn't happen because I didn't push for it. I didn't have the time to dedicate towards getting it set up. But the goal is to build effectively a machine that I don't have to be piloting all the time. I'm here to sort of every week kick the football down the field, and everyone else is able to continue the play. That's the thing we're trying to figure out. So again, I'm always open. That cough doesn't sound good. Don't smoke for 34 years. And it's actually very good, as odd as that may sound. It's fine. Docs check me out. I just went in for a colonoscopy. You talk about, we do a lot of ass jokes because of the solar anus. That was not fun, but everything's healthy. Full checkup, all those fun things. Happy day. And as I said last time, I recommend everyone do the same thing if you're of age. And the age for that now, it seems to be, is 45. Unless you have family history, it could be earlier. The process itself, not a big deal. Before sucks, after is nothing. So go do that. So the goal is to try to figure out how we can build this going forward. So a couple people were able to get in the Google Doc, make their comments. The forum part on Discord didn't seem to go too fire, to work out too much. And again, a lot of that is that I didn't sort of follow it up. What channel is best to add questions to regarding this reading? Well, this is part of this is us figuring that out. So the timing is phenomenal, Collie. Let's see. Let's go through. What do we have on Discord right now? Because we have the translation, which is not it. We have our readings. Did AO's still there, but I should probably create a new one. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll separate it out. Give me 2 seconds to... Just create a brand new channel there for... We'll do forum. It'll be AO 2026. The last one was AO 2023. So, buckle up. Holy shit. The Creative Coast guidelines, that's fine. I don't really care. That's fine. We'll just get through this. Make the first post. Post here for AO. There, we'll do that. Then I'll move it up because I can to the top of our readings. Under our readings is AO 2026, and I will post a note here in the chat in Discord. AO 2026. And I know what you meant, Anton. That's why it was a fun joke. So today we're going to be going through one more paragraph. We're probably going to go back over the previous two. This is going to be a little bit more casual, a little bit easier, and a little bit sort of focused on whatever is coming around. We'll just see what we can do. Wait. What the fuck? Yeah, okay, good. So I guess with that, we head into, if this works. It sort of didn't. That's okay. Why did that not work? This camera was, oh, there I am. Excellent. There. See, some asshole. That's what I am, I think. We'll readjust that because it wasn't looking great. There. Okay. We'll end up going back through. We have a handful of corrections and annotations. I've got a lot more work there. The last week has just been not super there. But there's a reason that this is a focus for me. One of the things you're going to start seeing, and if you haven't seen it over the last couple weeks, there's a lot of videos about why Trump voters are okay with this, or why is America okay with this, or all these things that are, to me, incredibly unfulfilling questions to ask, because most of the answers that we end up getting are, they're just stupid, or they're just racist, they're just this, they're just that. They just don't understand their own interests. They don't vote for their own actual interest because they're just dumb, or they've been lied to, or they've been tricked. It's amazing to see it continually happen. And as I like to bring up, it's literally addressed in this book. The book comes about from Reich's question, why do men desire their own repression? And he's not simply talking about the right wing. He's talking about people in general. And the answer of them being tricked is that's one, it's really fucking arrogant. Like, I don't know how else to put it. It's really fucking arrogant. It presumes that you certainly aren't being tricked. And if only they'd listen to you and that you know exactly what's happening. I hate that. It's deeply unsatisfying to me. But the second thing is, it also presumes that if you show them the right thing, all I have to do is show them the truth. And this type of mentality is, this is Islamic Jihad foundational stuff. Like foundational stuff. The first writers of Islamic Jihad talk about this. You'll hear this same thing with mass shooters, with terrorists, with the worst kind of violent people who do horrifying things with the excuse that it will wake the people up or it will make them understand. It doesn't. It never has. It doesn't do that, because that's not really the whole thing. There's a lot more happening. And in order to really be able to communicate what's happening and really talk about how we can begin fixing things or getting places into a stronger, emancipatory political position, people need to be able to understand how politics and they function socially, how these things come about, how you are produced, we are produced, your enemies are produced. And all of these things is horrifying, is a lot. But this is what, to me, Anti-Oedipus fundamentally does from beginning to end. It gives you not the answer, but it gives you a logic to understand how one's own repression becomes the center of one's life, and how also everyone here probably is doing it too. We just don't consider it the same way. And that self-knowledge is really powerful. So all the political work I'm doing, I tend to lean heavily on the theory side of things. Actual activist politics has been weirdly more of my life in the last 6 months than I really ever expected. But I think this stuff's important. So this is where I'm going to be spending my time. So I want to be doing that. Is AO a philosophy of liberation? AO is a logic of social repression. If I had to put it to a thing, AO is a logic of social repression. And by understanding that, it doesn't go away. It's not, Anti-Oedipus at no point is saying we need to get rid of social orders and setups, the social space, that we need to not be able to talk to each other, that we all need to be hyper-individualist. It's quite the opposite of an understanding. And it's really complicated, but it's about understanding how we all function, the logic of all of it. My video's frozen? No, my video is perfectly fine. I'm looking at it. Perfectly fine. So that's a you issue. It's frozen on your end too? Oh, you're talking in Discord. Yeah, that's because it's stupid. Wonderful. Wonderful, Discord. Aren't you my favorite thing? That's okay. We'll do the entire scene. And we'll see if that works. Well, see, that's a very thoughtful picture of me, though, LJ. That's what you're not understanding. Yeah, it's still fucked. That's wonderful. Yep. Okay, and then that froze. Okay, so just everything is just not wanting to work for me today because that froze me on YouTube. Wonderful. So that's just going to be whatever the fuck the nightmare is. That's okay. I'm just going to, let's see. You just don't get to see me. There's no way I can get around that. Sorry. So you get to just get my screen share, and then I'm just not going to have a camera running on Discord. But everyone else, you get to hopefully still see me. Fuck. I gotta tell you, fucking technology, man. Anyway, this is, for me, the importance of the moment and the importance of the next few years and this process. There is no revolution coming tomorrow. There is no change that's going to destroy capitalism tomorrow. These fantasy versions of idealistic utopian revolutions are nonsense and the worst type of child fodder that they feed people in order to keep them sort of hoping and not doing. Doing is important. And I believe that this is an inspirational book for that. So what can I say? But with that, we're going to head into the next paragraph. And this one's a little bit jankier when we start talking about my translation versus everything. And again, the whole point of my translation is not to be perfect. In fact, it's almost hyper literal because I don't speak French very well, and I don't pretend to otherwise. And the whole point is arguing because I want to understand more and better. It'll be fun. Revolution, a noble lie. I know, it's terrible. It's just so awful to know. What can I say? But, let's do it. This is where we, again, this whole book, there's going to be a lot of shit that's very different from yours. That's the way it works. But let's do it. Continuation of the schizo's walk. When Beckett's characters decide to go out, one must first see how their varied movements are themselves a meticulous machine. And then the bicycle. In what relationship is the bicycle horn machine with the mother anus machine? Quote, speaking of bicycles and horns, what a rest. Unfortunately, that is not what it is about, but the one who gave me the day through the whole of her garlic, if I have good memory. It's horrifying translation, don't worry. One often believes that Oedipus is easy. It is given, but it is not so. Oedipus supposes a fantastic repression of machines of desire. And why? For what purpose? Is it truly necessary or desirable to submit to it? And with what? What to put in the Oedipal triangle? With what to form it? The bicycle horn and my mother's ass. Does that do the job? Are there not more important questions? Given an effect, what machine could well produce it? And a machine being given, what can it serve? For example, guess from the geometric description of a knife holder what its use is. Or indeed, before a complete machine formed of 6 stones in the right pocket of my coat, pockets that dispense, 5 in the right pocket of my pants, 5 in the left pocket of my pants, transmission pockets, the last pocket of the coat receiving the stones used as the others advance, what is the effect of this distribution circuit, where the mouth inserts itself as a machine for sucking stones? What is here the production of voluptus? At the end of Malone Dies, Mrs. Peddle takes the schizophrenics on a walk, in a charabanc, in a boat, on a picnic in nature, an infernal machine preparing itself. Oh, it's a fun one. Please. I heard someone go, is dying to just correct me on something, please. I know I heard you. It's okay. So this paragraph's fascinating, and the original is the original English translation. No, you're fine, Planet. The original English translation adds so much to this that is just absolutely unnecessary. What this paragraph's doing is dealing with the schizo-autistic movement against the stasis that the psychoanalyst or analyst sort of symbolism in general does to how people understand things or how we look at things or how we take a critical eye, you might say, as a critic of things, all of this. The argument to this paragraph that is central is that Oedipus is not natural. Instead, it requires a fantastic repression of the machines of desire. It raises this question of whether the repression is necessary or desirable itself. That's what this is about. Samuel Beckett wrote Malloy. If you haven't read this trilogy, it's going to be pretty important to like a lot of the references they're making. It's not necessary like to fully understand the book because again, most of these things are written by others. They're secondary texts. The books are, I think it's great. But Malloy's, we'll just say, is a unique character. I think my mom would say, well, he's just quite a character, in that kind of sense. These things that Malloy goes through and how he responds, what he talks about, the whole point is this demonstration of these questions of how the machinic works. What does any machine produce? What does it serve? And these are fundamental questions, more fundamental than the flat Oedipalization of mother, for example. And then again, ending with Malone dies, which is, again, part of the series. There's an outing with a whole bunch of severe autists from a local. What we're doing, can we change the translation? We'll get there. Lady Peddle's outing for these severe autistics. They use the term, this becomes an infernal machine. And I really love, at the end of Malone Dies, she takes the schizophrenics on a walk, in a charbunk, in a boat, on a picnic. These people who are locked up, who are under her care, the infernal machine that they're talking about that's being formed here is a collective schizophrenic element of desire, that this group is directly connecting, that it is a machinic group, that this infernal machine preparing itself. And again, it's leaning towards the idea of where this goes and what this does to the rest of it. But the idea of that is that these schizophrenics, like in the previous paragraph, the schizophrenics walk, a better thing. They went through Buchner's walk of Lenz. That's the same thing, but this is a group of schizophrenics on a walk in a share book on blah, blah, blah. And this is the infernal machine preparing itself. The phrasing is fantastic. I really like it. Now to go through bit by bit. What purpose can it have? Well, we'll get to that because it's, my big question is going to be this sort of opening of how we get it across. So, I mean, a lot of these are where we start getting into these really fun references of the French. And again, why I think doing this translation live, despite it making me look like a total jackass, the really fun part is we're discussing the actual sense of every sentence to such a deep level. That's kind of the idea. So we'll get to it, Estelle. We will absolutely get to it, Estelle. Don't worry. This opening. So in the previous one, the other English translation, it opens with, now that we've had a look at the stroll of a schizo, let us compare what happens when Beckett's characters decide to venture outdoors. Which is not at all the French is, suite de la promenade de schizo, en les personnages de Beckett sortir. That it's, again, to continue the schizo's walk could be even a better interest, but they add so much to this. It's just such a fucking longer thing. It's so frustrating because this is the thing that they did. The previous paragraph was one schizo. To continue the schizo walk is the point of this. The thing in the previous paragraph was Lenz and Buchner, right? And we talked about one schizophrenic, one autist who's wandering through a city, and then he wanders out through nature, and the way that the machines of the world deal with him, or the symbolism of the exact religious social structure that the priest forces upon him. It's one schizo in a social space. To continue this, though, is a little bit different. He starts walking through these other elements to talk about this walk model and other literary figures, building from one who's sort of dealing in a particular way to Beckett's versions of this, where it's mini characters and how they deal with this. The whole point is that this continues the preceding passage, but announcing that we're moving into Beckett and other elements. And they continue, one must first see how their very movements are themselves a meticulous machine. I don't even want to read the fucking original English one. It's awful. It's really bad. The first thing they want to step at, and again, if you want to talk about how, is it all the same schizo walking in different iterations? The schizo is a process, and the schizophrenic is the clinical entity. So they're talking about the schizo out on a walk versus the schizophrenic out on a walk. And that's actually really important in the way that they phrase this in the original French. They go out of their way to say schizo, schizophrenic in various ways. And it's a very specific polemic that they're making when it's the clinical entity is the person, is someone who's actually been committed, or someone who's catatonic or problematic, whatever it is. But then there's the schizo, the process, that thing. It's a little bit different. Again, as I read it, I don't know how else to I'm going to end up saying that like 10 billion times. The replacement of schizo is incredibly complicated, because the schiz is actually a really good phrasing for what they're talking about, if you understand the specifics around it, which I'm not getting into right now. And it's a lot, because it's not a schizophrenic that they're talking about. They're talking about autism. Well, not just autism. They're talking about the gigantic umbrella that was in 1970 and before, when Guattari was practicing, the huge umbrella that was schizophrenia. Schizophrenia and autism were the same diagnosis. Childhood schizophrenia or adult schizophrenia was kind of how they saw the two. This is not me saying this. This is the history of these things. At some point, people went, oh, actually, this thing we have autism, it's like this very particular part of schizophrenia. The way it shows up and actually works, it is similar, but it's its own diagnosis. It's not just childhood schizophrenia. So the use of schizophrenia that they're talking about is not limited, actually, to just what we now know as a schizoaffective disorder, where there sort of is the rambling connections or the racing thoughts. It's actually very different from that. It's a good phrasing.
So,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry. I've heard it said, and I don't know if this is something you would agree with or even in relation to the text, but I've heard it said of like as schizophrenia is a spectrum disorder and autism as well, but it's like schizophrenia is like a vertical, no, schizophrenia is like a horizontal axis and autism is like a vertical axis. So it's like a depth versus breadth sort of thing, where autism is like hyper focused to a degree on a certain thing, and schizophrenia is kind of like drawing connections from multiple, the paranoia of schizophrenia is kind of like, oh, I saw this, message on TV, which means the government is following me. That's like kind of I don't know. These are, I don't know, examples, but
it's
is that a dynamic?
I don't know. My first instinct is personally, I would say that doesn't map onto my understanding of what they're talking about here. Again, I'm not talking about the grand medical history of this. I am not a psychotherapist. This is like, I'm not like, there are doctors who deal with these things, but specifically with Guattari and Deleuze, we can infer pretty heavily that they're mostly talking about what we would call autistics. And the reason I say that is because that's who they treated at the various clinics that Guattari worked at. That's the when they start talking about, for example, the schizophrenics ultimate version, whatever that may be, is catatonia. That's because for them, the setup is how one is disconnected from the meaning of life, or overindulging the symbolic or understanding, and disconnects that from the very existence they have. And that lack of connection then builds into more and more and more until they're simply, banging their head against a wall over and over and over and having to be committed. That is the schizophrenic to them. It includes people who make claims or say that they are X, Y, or Z. If you haven't worked with like severe autistics, they also they play a little bit into the same sort of fantasy building that we commonly associate with, like, oh, this guy thinks he's Napoleon, therefore he's schizophrenic. That type of language play. All of this is built into this very large diagnostic sort of criteria they had at the time. And so it's, again, as they're going, there's a lot of inferring that has to be done around exactly what version of these things in terms of today's language we're using. But Guattari writes extensively, Deleuze as well, and primarily they're focusing on a drive towards what we would call autism. Yeah, catatonia is a feature of both. Yeah, this is, again, we're trying to take their term to map it onto modern things. It's not going to work 100%. Like even what we call autism today is like, that spectrum is so fucking wide that, there's a Aspergery assholishness on one end, all the way to, various types of obsessive compulsive disorders can be like, all of these things can be scattered across both, depending. Mental conditions are incredibly complicated. They didn't used to be. And that sort of generalization is really what they're coming from. Does that make sense? Yeah, and they're talking about models of treatment. Yeah, this is, they are coming up from the position of, again, Guattari and his absolute many, many, many years of doing this shit. And the actual way that people are treated, how they're categorized in terms of the clinical system. There's a reason that Foucault writes about it as he does. Again, the clinical system and how it categorized is primarily what they're coming at. They did not have an understanding of autism or these things that's kind of the very functional person. They would not necessarily include in this clinical category, although they do include it as the sense of we all have these processes working underneath. God, that's confusing. Let's get to the end of the paragraph and come back over and start going and talking over it, because I think there's a discussion to be had about how we talk about or translate, or again, when I go back through, and I'm going to be doing another stream this week where we do purely annotations and making sure the notes are in there. That's a big deal for me. All of these things I want to make sure I capture. So yeah. I need to do more explainer videos. That's appreciated. I have 4 essays recorded, and then I murdered someone, and I got maced and pepperballed, and a bunch of us did, and then people I cared about, like it's been a very long week and a half. Been a very long week and a half, and it's hard for me to. I don't know if you saw Jesse Ginger put out a video and then reposted it. It had to do with like Game of Thrones or some other shit. And it's like the literacy of modern media or something. And then they posted, this is so important because it's really relevant to what's happening in Minneapolis. And I don't want to be that person who's like, oh yeah, no, this fucking people are dying and like we have Nazis taking over. And have you noticed? It's really weird. What's the deal with airline food? Like, it's like, I don't want to be that fucking person, even if it's philosophy. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, don't be sorry for me still. the whole point of going down, the whole point of it, and I don't go down as much as I could. I've got the kids and everything, and I'm scared. I'm scared to go down. Every time I go down, more and more scared. I wasn't scared early on. I'm more scared now. And it's real conversations I have to have with Heather, and we have to be really thoughtful about it. I go down as much as I can. Kidnapping, becoming, they're down there every fucking day almost. And they make me feel like a big old pussy, and I love them. They're wonderful. Wish I could go down more, genuinely. Good people. To continue through this, instead of getting over on the political stuff, which I could easily just disappear inside of very, very fast. We'll come back around to the discussion around the schizo, because I do want to have that discussion. That might end up being actually what we do for the last hour of this. Jesse Dinder does good work. That's me. That's not me saying that's a shitty poster. This is not some shitty person. I just don't want to be that person who's that tone deaf. I don't want to be the person who on SNL decided that they would open with jokey fucking non-hard bullshit the same week that, unarmed man is shot multiple times in the back. Like we live in hell. Turn my mic up a little bit. I'm losing you when your voice dips down. Oh shit. Really? On Discord. That's fascinating. 1 second. My mic is literally full. It's on studio. Yeah, let me see if I can bump up I'm just trying to make sure I don't blow everyone away in YouTube either, because I am going to be tapping out there. That's probably as far as I can really do it. But I just don't want to be the tone deaf person. I'm really sensitive to it. We are in a inflection point time, and it's not a thing that's today. It's not tomorrow, but the next year, maybe two, are going to define so much of the rest of my life, my children's lives, and their children's lives, if they have kids, and all of your lives. And so it's meeting the moment is important. That's why AO works for me. AO works for me because this is meeting the moment to me. But otherwise, it's tough. The point here, let's get back. Oh, I'm hearing myself. Hello. Who's got a thing? Someone got a thing? No? Okay. All right. You have a thing. Please, MF Doom. Everyone's on mute. Well, MF Doom, I think. If you got a thing, MF Doom, you can type it up or you can speak. Everyone's pretty free to do what they need to do. We're mostly open. But typing's easier. And I'll just continue a bit. The phrasing. One must first see how their varied movements are themselves a meticulous machine. Even insofar, and as we go through this and as we talk about how D&G see things, it isn't that they see things as larger symbols of things or symbolic elements. Instead, it's about everything that is happening being indices of other elements, being indices of the machinery underneath. Even the way that Beckett's characters move, them specifically, and it's granted, it's written, but Beckett spends a huge amount of time talking about how these characters particularly deal with the world, how they how Malloy honks the bicycle horn, for example. These things are incredibly particular. And when we went through this, we read part of the passages, it's almost a obsessional geometric path that these characters walk. The character Malloy continually is what you would call deteriorating. It's a character who's falling apart, like socially and in his world, and slowly becoming more and more what we would say is unwell. Like, I don't know how else to talk about the book that way. That's the setup. But every time that this clearly gets worse, how you can tell is because his way and method of dealing with the world is more and more meticulous and precise, obsessional. Again, when we talk about autistic versus schizophrenic, it isn't the schizophrenic. It's not really pure autism either. You have to be, again, thinking about the clinical way they're treating people. It is the way that people go, okay, left, and I go this way, and then it's a direct 90-degree turn, and then this, and then it's a 45-degree. That obsessional, precise machinery is basically the core of Malloy in how he operates. Moran, who's another character that Beckett works with, does almost the opposite. It's almost inverse to this, because again, it's about how people sort of deal with the world. The way Beckett writes is mathematical to a absurd degree for these parts, and that's the thing that they're driving for. The machines he's about to reveal in the next handful of sentences here. And there's very particular machines that are coming. The preparation is to be talking about, look at the precision that is coming, the varied movements that are themselves a machine. And they say, and then in the bicycle, in what relationship is the bicycle horn with the mother anus machine? Absurd on its face, because that doesn't make sense as a thing, right? It doesn't make sense as a thing. However, in the context of the book and how these things connect, it isn't that there is a larger mother that he's dealing with. That would be the psychoanalyst sort of version of this. The function that's happening here, the connection between these two seemingly disparate, unconnectable things, the mother, his mother's butthole, and his bicycle horn. What's the connection? They're both objects partial. They're both partial objects and machines themselves. They're both things that produce effects, but how does desire circulate within them? And how does it set up? In Malloy, the way Beckett writes, Malloy's bicycle has this wah-wah horn, like the little squeezy horn thing. He really, really likes it. And the way that he gets around is this bicycle with this horn. His traversal around the city is that his mother is like the opposite machine, a machine of origination, a machine of disgust, a machine of repulsion. And the bicycle machine is almost an emancipatory machine. Also a machine of losing and collapsing, right? Because if we take the traditional Oedipal version of this, everything's related to mom or dad or me, not the bicycle horn on its own. It's not really that. Like, we want to trace the bicycle horn to the mom if we're doing the Oedipal thing. But that's not the question they have. The question they have is, how do these things produce? What do they produce? And how do they connect? And the next little bit is sort of a hacked together translation from Malloy. I'm really just as a note. So the phrasing I use in this, through the hole in her garlic, if I have good memory, this is actually it actually says garlic in the French. It says garlic in the French. Because if you haven't read Beckett wrote in French, and the way that this is sort of written, and again, the French has, you're free to tell me, anyone, but this right here, ale is in the original, which is some kind of weird, I don't even know. And wait, really? I have my copy here. I don't know why my PDF has it as ale. That wouldn't be right. That's actually not right. So frustrating. See, now that I'm pulling out, I'm glad I have to do this with 9 fucking things. It's an error. It's weird. It's in my PDF that way. It's cool. Yeah, it's cool. So it's ass. It is 100% ass. If in doubt, it's ass. Generally speaking, yes. Fascinating. So cool. Yeah. So it is ass. Good. Thank you, Estelle. That's why I keep you here. I'm always fascinated. Fucking. So I bring out the first edition. The point of this, speaking of bicycles and horns, what a rest. Unfortunately, that is not what it is about, but the one who gave me the day through the whole of her ass, if I have good memory. He was born of her asshole. I have the paper book in my hand too, Estelle. I assumed garlic was an idiom because it's in the PDF, and that's what I've been using. That's what I used to do all of this. So I'm fine with it. Again, the point of this is to look like a fool. Cul-de-sac means bottom of a bag. Cul-de-sac means ass of a sack. Sorry, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. It's a bad joke. Anyway, this is a direct quote from Malloy. This is Beckett. And what they're talking about here is the way that, very specifically, Malloy is very much talking about sort of, I don't know. Malloy has this huge monologue in the book that is about these sort of forced reflections on his birth and his early life as he is, we'll say, falling apart. Like as his connections to the world are being slowly dismantled and falling apart. As he makes his way through this sort of monologue, he goes into these weird, obsessive, machinic sort of procedural things. When he's talking about how these things are connected, and Deleuze is having us look at it, the whole point is that these things connect via what they produce, more or less. That there is a burden that's being forced upon Malloy as he's forced to consider his origin and forced continually to think about mom, forced continually to think about the woman who gave birth to me. And the joke he's making here is that he wasn't born normally, that he wasn't born in this specific way, that he's having this sort of way of being brought into the world where he's further disconnecting because it's not directly about the Oedipal. That's the point, ultimately, that desire is machinic and not Oedipal. They explain it. One often believes that Oedipus is easy. It is given, but it is not so. Oedipus supposes a fantastic repression of machines of desire. The theme of what they're going for here. The theme of what they're going for here is to break away from that sort of given of Oedipus and the symbolic sort of restructuring into that triangle that Oedipus creates everything, or that it's this relational, analogical sort of way that things have meaning. And the only way this happens, and that's it, Oedipus supposes a fantastic repression of machines of desire. More or less the central thesis of the book, that desiring machines themselves have to be repressed for Oedipus to appear as this dominant structure of desire. And as such, Oedipus is secondary. It's not primary. And they continue, and why, for what purpose? Is it truly necessary or desirable to submit to it? With what? What to put in the Oedipal triangle and what to form it? Sorry, that's probably not right. Yeah, and with what to form it is actually right. Yeah, with what to form it. Sorry, I said that wrong. Again, the English adds so much here. It's intended to be, these are incredibly huge political questions that are being added here, right? Like why is Oedipus seemingly first, but actually placed second? What is the purpose Oedipus has? Is it necessary or desirable to submit to Oedipus? With what do we submit? What do we put in the triangle? And with what do we form the triangle of Oedipus? What is the thing we're doing here? It's these short staccato questions. And the whole point is that, what the fuck? Why are we repressing desiring machines? Why is this a thing we do? Is it necessary? Is it desirable? These are questions they're literally going to be working with, because again, their project is not to obliterate the social space or any of that. That there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not, there's a whole bunch of things going on here, but it is fundamentally saying, is Oedipalization natural? Or does it serve some purpose that's larger than what we tend to think of it as? What do you put in the triangle? I love this. What do you actually put in the triangle, and with what do you form it? What do you put in the triangle? With what do you form it? Is fuck. I don't want to get into it too much. That's such a brilliant way of putting what is effectively this book. I really love the phrasing. The English fucks this up. I think the original is like almost poetically simple. Really, really nice. Because this is Reich's question. Why do people desire their own repression? Well, extend that. Why Oedipus is the dominant form? What do we put in Oedipus, and with what do we build the structure of Oedipus itself? And the question is, referencing just a moment ago, the bicycle horn in my mother's ass, does that do the job? Does that do the job? Is that the thing? These partial objects that clearly don't have much massive meaning in and of themselves, are those sufficient enough to build the Oedipal triangle entirely? Is that enough? They could have used different name for the book rather than Anti-Oedipus. No, Anti-Oedipus is basically the best name they could have. It's a perfect name. Because Malloy, speaking of bicycle horns, what a rest. Fortunately, it's not what it's about. Who gave me the day? Through a hole in her ass, if I have a good memory, if I'm not mistaken. This sentence, why are these things connecting? Is that enough to build Oedipus, just that sentence? No, they're not. But these seem to be two poles Malloy's caught between. It's a pretty important moment for him. But these are two poles. They don't form a triangle. There's a connection, and a machinic connection at that. So, no, it doesn't do the job. And are there not more important questions? Given an effect, what machine could well produce it? And a machine being given, what can it serve? They're almost formulaically laying these things out here. These are the questions they're going to be answering in the brunt of this book. First is the retroductive. From effect to machine. What produced this? Right? So we have an effect. What produced this? And then there's the prospective element. From machine to function. what can this machine produce? What does it do? But neither of these things are Oedipalizing. None of these things are Oedipal themselves. It mirrors what can a body do from Spinoza, which they use that phrase a lot. They say, for example, guess from the geometric description of a knife holder what its use is. This is a very specific and fantastic little thing. If you haven't seen a knife holder, it is a little tiny block. That's it. It's a little, they're usually metal, sometimes with a little block. And what they're for, now granted, I'm American. I didn't know these things had names, but once upon a time, you'd butter or you'd use a knife and you wouldn't just sit it on your tablecloth because that would be just awful and you'd make a mess of things and all of that. So a knife holder, you lean it on because its knife goes like this and then it's leaning on the table, but the messy part's in the air. Right? But that block, if I were to tell you these are the dimensions, could you possibly tell me what a knife holder's for? No. The answer is no. The answer is you fucking couldn't. You couldn't. It's a knife rest is how it's also translated. Perfectly fine. The whole point is that a machine's function is not possible to deduce purely from its description, a formal geometric description especially. You can't know what something does from what it is, like what it produces based on its structure. There's basically no harder way to say like fuck structuralism. I don't know how else. I'm not a structuralist. Would be kind of the other way to say this. Because that's like the point for them is you can't just, if I describe this thing, can you tell me what it does? No. Well, that's kind of a problem. And this next bit, which there is, I don't even know if there's a right way to translate this one. You can't tell what someone is based on who they are. That's also correct, Lucia. You literally, there's nothing, like none of this works. If I were to give you a geometric description of a dozen things, you would have no idea what any of them do, because that isn't the thing that does it. That's not what makes things produce. That's not the thing that is the thing. You can't describe in that way. It's significantly more contextual and problematic. Now the example they give. Okay. Malloy, who we were just talking about, being born of his mother's ass as a joke and having his honk honk bicycle horn. He had this ritual. And I'm just, I don't think it's possible to even describe it like, or explain it outside of just saying, he liked sucking on stones. That was his thing. He loved sucking on stones. And he had a bunch of pockets. And the pockets, he had a very particular method of like one stone, he'd be like sucking on his mouth. And then when he was done with it, it'd move that over and it'd go over to the next pocket. That thing as it's going would basically be the deal, right? Here it goes to here, and then this one goes to the next one. There's this very particular elaborate way that he had these 16 stones. And the 4 pockets and making sure that each one got evenly sucked without repetition. How one pocket was for, it's just to read it. Indeed, before a complete machine formed of 6 stones in the right pocket of my coat, the pocket that dispenses them, 5 in the right pocket of my pants, 5 in the left pocket of my pants, the last pocket of the coat receiving the stones, used as the others advance. What is the effect of this distribution circuit where the mouth inserts itself as a machine for sucking stones? This is Malloy's machine of moving the stones, getting the next thing, the setup, blah, 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 all that, right? That's his stone sucking machine is desiring production in full operation. There are inputs, there are outputs, there's transmission, there's circulation, and there's an interruption in the mouth machine. But what does it produce? What is its effect? What is its effect? The answer is voluptus. It's the next sentence. what is here the production of voluptas? In the original, it said, where in the entire circuit do we find the production of sexual pleasure? Really hate that for a reason. It isn't that Malloy is outright getting what we would call sexual pleasure. He isn't like imagining that it's a cock. He's not like getting off on it quite literally and orgasming in his pants. He's not getting sexual pleasure, the individualized post-personal sexual pleasure. Voluptas is delight, enjoyment. You could say touching into jouissance as a thing, ish. Not to touch on what I see someone asked a few times. Voluptas is not just sexual pleasure. It is sensual pleasure. It's important as a thing. Super important because voluptas comes from Lucretius and Epicurus and a bunch of people that Deleuze really, really, really likes. And it's important to have that sort of thing. Just mentioning. Does that make sense? The machine produces intense, sensuous pleasure, voluptuousness, delight in Malloy. The thing that is the question here, is it Oedipal? Genital? I can't imagine it's either of those. And it's not outright sexual either. Man, they fuck up the translation. The effect of this is delight. This is how machines work. It's olfactory delight. It's sensual delight. The sucking on stones thing is, to him, enjoyable. There's a billion little ways that we all find little bits of enjoyment out of things. Everything's weird. We're all weird. We all have little things that sensuously as in the sensuous, that we find just as a pleasure. Like it's a relieving, oh yeah, it's not sexual, but it's sensual, voluptas, important. But the stone sucking machine itself produces pleasure, not Oedipal pleasure, not genital pleasure. Instead, it is this oral, machinic, repetitive pleasure. So what is the effect? Well, it is voluptas. It's voluptas. And then they get to the end here. At the end of Malone Dies, Beckett. Suppose the coat had a third pocket to put sucked stones in. Would it be a different machinic system? You mean a fifth pocket? Because it goes, I take it out here into my coat pocket, move stones here to my pants pocket here, left side up, and then to my preparatory pocket, to my mouth. Would it be a different machine? Yes. In fact, it's all different machines. Like, again, we'll get into this, but it goes further. But yes, it is. These are all different connections, and the mouth isn't really, it's part of the machine, but it's also its own interruption machine, and also is the hand part of it. Like, this is the thing that they're asking. At what point do you stop? Like, oh, it's just, there it is. That's where the pleasure is. It's because it's mom. He's sucking on a thing because it's his mom's tit. And that's where pleasure comes from. We get sucking enjoyment because it's mom's tit. It seems the translators took it upon themselves to make it more rhetorical. Well, and also sexual, because again, Deleuze's entire thing is not to even talk about sex. They want us to find the non-human sex, which is like a huge deal to them, which means everything's sexual. So technically what they're writing is right, if you're understanding that you're using sexuality in the way that Deleuze and Guattari are using it. The third paragraph of a book without having that as part of it, I feel it's a little presumptuous. Plus, voluptas is a very particular concept that they're going to be using throughout. And as you said, Noah, it's 100% the third syntheses that he's talking about here, the connecting, the disjunctive, the disconnection recording, followed by the conjunctive or voluptus. So yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting set of choices. Is voluptus related to Schreber's soul voluptuousness? Did they say that? Because they I don't know. That's a good question. Could it fit with people with like OCD, obsessive patterns? Someone who washes their hands 5 times. They believe something bad will happen. Yes. The question is, what is it that these things are that we see as, oh, it's Malone's got all of these things, and ultimately it's just because we want to flatten it to just say, oh, he just gets pleasure because he's substituting something for his mom's tit, and the rest of it is this fucking OCD thing. It's like, really? Because there's a lot going on there. And you could even go further into how the pleasure he gets in the moving of the stones and the feeling of them between his fingers and how they clack and the sound that they make. And the, like, again, if you haven't read it, you should. The ritual of the stones is not a minor thing in the book. It's kind of important. And then to get to the end, the concept of voluptuousness does come from Schreber. Voluptuousness, yes. I would have to spend time to see if it's voluptus, because voluptus is a very particular type of sensual pleasure that comes from the Epicurean, Stoic, Greek thinkers of that time. So it predates them a little bit, but it does touch back into it, I'm pretty sure. We get to the end, though. At the end of Malone Dies, Mrs. Peddle takes the schizophrenics on a walk, in a charbonk, in a boat, on a picnic in nature. An infernal machine is preparing itself. So, okay. Madam Peddle, Mrs. Peddle, Miss Peddle. It probably should be Miss Peddle. I put Mrs. Peddle because I've seen that in the, like, translations vary, but it's Madame Peddle, Madam Peddle, Lady Peddle, also, depending. I don't know, whatever. Doesn't even matter. I don't think that matters. Malone Dies is a really odd book. There's this scene where this woman from an asylum, Madame Peddle, takes out the inmates to a picnic. And it ends in a massacre. It ends in really just the worst fucking things that happens. Malone might die, by the way. It's called Malone Dies. One of the guys basically kills a bunch of people with a hatchet. So, how do we get there? Well, their point, and it's a very, very simple setup as they're talking about it, is the end of the book. The schizophrenics go on a walk in a charabanc, right? I'm not going to, I left it because it's a very particular type of vehicle, but it's basically a tour bus. Sorry. It's like a tour bus with bench seats. I don't know how else to put it. And they go out and they're experiencing the world, and this infernal machine that's being assembled is the massacre that's coming. One of the attendants kills a bunch of people with a hatchet, and the entire thing that's happening here is about how this is sort of self-assembling. The collective arrangement of destruction that emerges from this group, their movement, and all the complexities of it. The infernal machine is being built by all of this. The massacre came not out of nowhere. It's not like it just happened. It's all of these together. Does that make sense? Tour bus with bench seats is just a tour bus. I don't know how else to put it. We don't really have these things anymore. And we certainly don't have them in a charo bank specifically is like, I don't know how else to put it. Have you seen, I lived in LA. So when I say tour bus, I mean like maps to the stars. And it's like a bunch of bench seats that people get in, people mover at Disney World. These types of things is what they're talking about. They were sort of a motor coach for a bunch of people, but it was for touring around. It's not a van. They originally said it was like a van, and the translator had van. It is not that. A trolley bus. Look, if you see Charabanc, it might be a trolley bus. Again, think of it as open air. I actually don't have the ability to share a video. I need to build into this that I can have but if I need to show a picture, I can spring it into that. Let me see. Let me see if I can do that real quick, maybe. Okay, boop. There, Charabanc. On Wikipedia. Get it? They have seats for people. And then, like, guy in front is like guiding it. It's like a tour bus. I probably should be tour bus. Because it's kind of a tour bus. What is that? What is the type of bus that they use for Hollywood? That's the Hollywood tour. Because it's open and it's someone who's like walking around going, and on the right, you'll see the very old building where blah, blah, blah happened. It's that kind of thing. That's what it was used for. It's like a bus, tour coach, that kind of thing. A mobile church. 92, you know what? Yes, that is also a thing it's used for. But it's open air tour buses. The point is that they're out and they're going about their thing. They're on a walk. They go for this thing. They then go in a boat. They then have a picnic in nature, and they're particular, all of their movements. And it's because it's not a small scene. This isn't like, hey, they went out and now, everyone's dead, dude. Like that shit sucks, man. That's not the thing. It's all of the complexities of all of this that goes in there ends in this massacre. The infernal machine is building itself out of this. The result is the end thing is just the machine that's made, the infernal machine being prepared through the movements of everyone. That's the entire point. It's like Egg's Bus. It is exactly Egg's Bus in Big Trouble in Little China. God, that's an underrated movie. It's a very underrated movie. Man, now I want to do a fucking movie on, I want to do a video on Big Trouble in Little China. I don't know if people have ever had the right take on that film. If you haven't watched it, you should. It's literally making fun of white people. The entire movie is about how stupid fucking white, like the entire thing is like mocking the idea of the Westerner who comes to save the day. It's insane and it's brilliant. The entire thing is brilliant. It's so good. Goddamn, what a good movie. Wang is the man. Seriously, like that whole movie is so good. Kurt Russell's phenomenal in it. Just so good. Big Trouble in Little China is Big Trouble in Little China and the Resolution of Orientalism. I like that. Do you have a reading on Leibniz modology? That's one of my dreams. I'm not good enough with Leibniz, and I don't think we have anyone who's super comfortable of being that person who claims it. Monadology, I've spent time with, and it is not easy. You have to have a significant mathematic breakdown. Significant. And I am not. So, generally speaking, I actually, I'm generally pretty happy with the rest of this, actually. Noah's up for a reading on Leibniz? Good for you. Good for you. Monadology is easier than Spinoza's ethics? No. No, not for me. Good for you. Good for you. Not for me. It's taken a lot of time for me to even make my way through it. And I got multiple secondary sources, and I've got people in the QC who I know do have a very good grasp. I'm not going to put them on a spot to host a reading group because they're professors. They're already doing that technically. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. Let's, who wants to do some poetry? Anyone want to do some poetry? We get to do it on occasion. The body beneath the skin is an overheated factory, and outside, the sick person shines, glows, from all its pores, bursts apart. So there's a reason it's being inserted here. When we talk about the infernal machine building itself, when we talk about this, the infernal machine, there's a lot of references we could be talking about and that they're pulling from. This quote, though, this is from our friend Antonin Artaud. The Suicide of Society. The man suicided by society. When we talk about the infernal machine preparing itself, and we're about to get into the idea of production itself as process. We're opening with Artaud here, and we're having this interstitial very particularly. The body as industrial site. This is not inserted here because they think it's fun and cool. They want us to, again, take it literally. This is not a reference to, oh, it's kind of like this. It's an allegory. It's this. No, literally. The body beneath the skin, an overheated factory. Outside, the sick person shines, glows, from all its pores, burst apart. The productive intensities that are happening burst out constantly from the limits of the body beneath the skin. Exploding out. Exploding out. This is the body as site of production and pollution and noise and light and heat and everything pulsing coming out of this. The body is a site of production. It is not representational. It is not a limit itself. It is not just a body. The production itself always excessive. Always overdone, always too much, always explosive. The body radiates machinic intensity. I just really, really love this. Also, I'm really not a fan of the original translation because it's just, Artaud was good enough to just trust the dude, use his words and be very literal. I think it works. The overheated body, the sick person. He's being, again, literal. He's being literal here. When you're sick, right? You overheat. Literally, this is not, Artaud was interesting because he was not really a poet in like the figurative way. A sick person shines. Have you ever been around really sick people? They glow from all its pores and they burst apart. So, oof. There's a reason he's saying this. The boundary between inside and outside, body and world, collapses as the sick person exists. The overheated factory body happens. quite literally what we're going to be talking about: desiring production and production as a large thing. Desiring machines do not respect the boundaries of a person. They're always overdoing it. Always overdoing it. Maybe change sick to feverish. No. La maladie brille. Maybe. I'm hesitant to say. Yeah. The original English says the invalid shines. So. Yeah. Feverish, maybe. Yeah, actually, it could be feverish. Because that is what he's referring to. I mean, someone who's a patient, someone who's that. Man, poetry is beautiful like this. Man, yeah. Yeah, you know what? I can agree with this. Does anyone drastically disagree with that, by the way? Well, because there's another part of this, feverish. The thing that he's getting at here is that this overheated factory, if we continually are breaking and holding it back and trying to keep everything internal, that it bursts out. Again, not allegory that's happening here, but it's not strictly feverish, because he's also speaking about those who are, like Artaud was, mentally unwell. He's talking about both of those. Pardon me. So the glowing, the shine, they had shine in like that thing. Why is sick bad? Well, sick isn't bad. Like, that's kind of what he's getting at here is, if it's feverish, like Artaud, as he's talking about this, let's say someone's feverish, the way that this comes about, how we can see it, it's a diagnostician's view of it, and an understanding that there's so much happening underneath this that's overheating, that needs connections to the outside, that needs all of this. The sick person shines, glows from all the pores, burst apart. The shatters, explodes. The setup that's happening here is that the visible effect of overheating this factory is real. Yeah, 1.4 is when we're going to have a lot of conversations. I'm not a super big fan of that. I mean, I'm going to be, but I'm just kind of like, Jesus Christ. That's going to be so much, dude. Feel like we don't want to over-translate. I agree. I'm hesitant too. I think it could. I think with malade in the French, the point is to have this double play. Again, it's poetry. I think the point is to have it be a little bit open, and that it's the sick person shines, glows from all its pores, burst apart. I think all of that is intended to be sort of taken as it is. And burst apart, I'm not sure I'm a fan of either. Like, again, burst apart explodes. Burst apart éclates. Shattering and exploding. Burst apart, maybe. A burst, I don't know if it has the right phrasing. Yeah, I'm going to probably stick with the generality of I think I'm going to stick with the generality of sickness, but I think it's yeah, there's something else there. Shines like being spotlighted on stage. So it's glows is the actual. It's il luit, which is glows, gleams. Yeah. Illuit de tous it's pretty particular in that usage. So yeah. Luit can mean reflective. Well, that's kind of the shines and glows. Again, that's the le malade brille shines, and then I read it as shines and then glows would probably be how I'd translate it. The glowing is a radiance, a diffusion of that. Whereas a brille sparkles, like it's a reflective shine. I think glistens could be really nice. Yeah, it could be nice words. I'm pretty sure I'm going to leave that as get a bucket and a mop for this sick ass Frenchie. I love you, 92. Yeah. Or DNJ saying knees desiring, arms sweaty, mothers desire posing some. I love you guys. I love you guys. But we're actually getting into the production of things. And this is going to be a thing. This is going to be a thing. There's a lot of changes from the original in here. Like, it's hard for me to even describe how many. There's a lot. A lot. You know anything about Artaud? Artaud, so the term body without organs comes from Artaud. Artaud was a schizophrenic playwright, not by our definition, but by definition of the day, who wrote poetry and plays and did some. We have a couple of readings that are in the history of QC. If you go back, you search for Artaud, you will find our old readings of him and explanations, because it's much more interesting to read Artaud with a literary eye than a philosophical one. The work that Deleuze has done to pull concepts from Artaud is exceptional. Body Without Organs comes from Artaud, very, very particularly, and is just wonderful stuff. Please, hello. Hello? Modest warfare. All right. I will just mute you for everyone. That should take care of that. I'll unmute afterwards. Yeah, his dishes have strong opinions. That is the case. We do not claim to establish a naturalist pole of schizophrenia. What the schizophrenic lives specifically, generically, is not at all a specific pole of nature, but nature as process of production. What does process mean here? It is probable that at a certain level, nature distinguishes itself from industry. In one respect, industry opposes nature. In another, draws materials from it. In another, it returns its waste to it, etc. This distinctive rapport, man-nature, industry-nature, society-nature, conditions even within society the distinction of relatively autonomous spheres that will be called production, distribution, consumption. But this level of distinctions, in general, considered in its formally developed structure, presupposes, as Marx showed, not only capital and the division of labor, but the false consciousness that capitalist being necessarily takes of itself, and of the frozen elements of an overall procedure. For in truth, the striking and black truth that lies in delirium, there are no spheres or circuits relatively independent. Production is immediately consumption and recording. Recording and consumption directly determine production, but determine it within production itself, so that everything is production. Productions of actions and passions. Productions of recordings, of distributions and markings. Productions of consumptions, of volupta, of anguishes, of pains. Everything is so much production that recordings are immediately consumed, and consumptions directly reproduced. Such is the first sense of the process, to carry recording and consumption within production itself, to make them productions of the same procedure. Reiko grabbed the original poem. It is, his poem is actually really beautiful. He mentions a few, really? See, this is interesting. All right, I'm going to continue with this paragraph, but we'll come back to that because that's going to be fascinating to sort of dive into. That'll be fascinating. Thank you, Reiko. Because if it's so, it's fever. But then again, I'm not going to do it. Not going to get sidetracked. I'm going to do my best not to get sidetracked this week. But we'll go back over that in a moment. Okay. First off, there's a lot of changes from the original English. Because the original English adds a lot here. For me, as I take this paragraph overall, as we're going through it and as we're thinking through it, they're moving from the Oedipal, symbolic, simplified representational view of things to even making sure in this paragraph we understand that schizophrenia is not itself also something to replace Oedipus. It's not just, oh, cool, so schizophrenia is cool, so we'll just have schizophrenia as the model and do that thing. No. Process is actually the big deal here. The process of things is what he's aiming at. Right? The process. Because, well, there is the capitalist distinction between production, distribution, and consumption. These are separate spheres. I mean, I can point at them. We can go look, and I can point to them. I can show you them, right? You get them, but these distinctions in those actually presuppose the capitalist system that built them. There's a conditioning happening here, and that really the phrase they use, the black truth, the dark truth. Black truth I like as a phrasing, but the schizophrenic's black truth reveals actually that those things don't also exist, not in anything more than process themselves, because everything is production. This is what the schiz shows. This is what they're going to be claiming and working through the entire book, that production is everything. That's it. Production produces recordings. It produces consumption, which themselves are actually productions that feed back into production. It's like Hey, Marx didn't go far enough. What if it's production? I heard, hey, Marx, I heard you like production, so I put some production in your production, so that way you could have production when you do production. That's literally what they're doing. The whole point is that they're moving from, at this point, these symbolic understandings, and they're using the Beckett and all these are things used commonly at the time, especially by the psychoanalytic crowd, the Zizek, the commentary people, to prove these symbolic representational things. And they're like, no. It's not that. There's a theory that we're building here. The identity of nature and industry is in the concept of production as process. Right? So, first line here. We do not claim to establish, to affix, I could also say here, a naturalist pole of schizophrenia. The whole point, boy, have you ever heard someone say that like the schizophrenic is what we need to be? Have you heard anyone say that about DNG? We're like 3 paragraphs in and they're like, no. So people don't read this book. People don't read this book. We don't want to say that the schizo has a particular relation with nature. They don't want us to talk about it as though the schizophrenic is the natural noble savage mentality, right? That we need to escape civilization for a natural schizophrenic mental state. No, they reject it outright. We do not claim to establish a naturalist pole of schizophrenia. But process, because here's the thing. They go on. What the schizophrenic lives specifically, because there is no natural noble savage version of the schizophrenic. What the schizophrenic lives specifically, generically, is not at all a specific pole of nature. They live nature as process of production. The relationship to nature is not that they're more or less natural. They're not a natural pole versus something else. They're not the natural versus our overwrought particular subjective experience. It's not someone who's returned to their pristine natural state. No. The schiz is natural production. It is nature as production. The process of production, not as a static given. Period. The phrase they use here, what the schizophrenic lives specifically, generically, is not at all a specific pole of nature, but nature is process of production. Generically, any Marxists here? The generic life? This is Marx from 1844 manuscripts. Humanity as species, and our essence is productive activity. That is the comment they're making here. That's the reference they're making. The schizophrenic lives the productive life. That is the thing. Everything is that. Everything is that. The noble schizo. It's trust me, there's enough people out there who claim this. The generic is the Marxist term. But what does process mean here? They say, well, process, they're being very particular because it's not, again, they're trying to really distance themselves from any of these weird traditional dichotomies that get built into this. Again, to move to a space of almost of productive everything. Hey, welcome, Joni. Thank you for muting. You can mute at any time, unmute at any time to ask a question, but welcome. They say, it is probable that at a certain level, nature distinguishes itself from industry. In one respect, industry opposes nature. In another, it draws materials from it. In another, returns its waste to it, etc. It's such a simple paragraph. I don't know why they translate it. It doesn't matter. Again, at a certain level, we totally can see it. Nature and industry can appear distinct. We get that they're not saying there's just an illusion, it's just bullshit. It's like, no, we get it. At some level, these things are distinct, right? They appear this way, certainly. we can talk about how industry is destructive to nature. You want to talk about clear-cutting entire mountain ranges. Doesn't feel supernatural to me. It draws from nature. It shits back its waste into nature. It's common sense to talk about these things. Totally. Makes total sense. This distinctive rapport, man-nature, industry nature, society nature, conditions even within the society the distinction of relatively autonomous spheres that will be called production, distribution, and consumption. That this apparent distinction that, again, returns its waste over refuse, is that really, one sec, let's see, returns its waste. Yeah, I think so. It's waste. They're making a reference to shit actually there, I think. These apparent autonomous spheres, right? This distinction of man nature or industry society or nature society, whatever it is. These things crystallize into further distinctions of other autonomous spheres. We call them, they're famous, right? They're marks. This is production, distribution, and consumption. These things structure the political economy of the bourgeois for Marx, right? In Gundries, though, the whole point for Marx is that we treat them as separate, but they're actually all moments within a single totality. If you didn't know, Marx is like super doing Deleuze here. I'm sorry, that was a terrible joke. Deleuze is, they're just following Marx here. Because they're setting up and they're playing into before they say, but this level of distinctions in general, considered in its formally developed structure, presupposes, as Marx showed, not only capital in the division of labor, but the false consciousness that capital being necessarily takes of itself and of the frozen elements of an overall procedure. The distinctions of production, distribution, consumption is not natural. This tripartite distinction presupposes capitalism, presupposes a division of labor, and presupposes the false consciousness that capitalism recognizes of itself and basically turns what is a consistent, continuous process into static representational elements. This is, again, Marx. There's a little Lukács, it's fine. Lukács. I need to get used to Lukács. I think it's Lukács. I've had a lot of people correct me in a lot of my ways. That's fine. Lukács. Is it a coincidence there's always an arbitrary tripart division of the unconscious? It's not exactly. Exactly. For in truth, the striking and black truth that lies in delirium, there are no spheres or circuits relatively independent. Production is immediately consumption and recording. Recording and consumption directly determine production. Determine it within production itself. The distinctions themselves are false. I mean, shocker. Duh. These things are not separate spheres. They're actually immediately identical with each other and with production itself. Production is always already at and doing consumption and recording. Consumption and recording, likewise, determine production and do so within the process of production itself. Okay? Following? So that everything is production. Productions, of actions and passions, productions of recordings, distributions and markings, productions of consumptions, of volupta, of anguishes and pains. I'm going to leave volupta every time, by the way. There's a reason for the term. There's a literal reason they continually use the term, because it's kind of important when we get to the three syntheses. Everything is so much production that recordings are immediately consumed, and consumptions. And this is a one I'm going to ask, because there's a really consumed and consuming, I think, is better here, but French to English is trouble. Consumed and consummated, but they have that. It's consommé and consumé. I hate fucking French, you motherfuckers. No, if you haven't seen it, sorry, I should show. Enrichissement sont immédiatement consommé, consume. The English is no fun. There's a semicolon. Oh, fuck, really? Really? Wait.
Can I ask just...
No one's allowed to ever ask questions ever.
Okay, I'll stop. No, but the recording, like, you have production, distribution, and consumption as, the three, like...
Yes.
Whatever, delineated spheres. So where does recording fit into that?
Recording's in the second. So the way that they phrase it, and it's two back, production of productions, actions and passions, productions of recordings, distributions and markings. So the production of recordings, distributions and markings is the second syntheses. Like I said, so that sentence, and I probably should have been more specific when I went through it, where they say everything is production. They're actually right here outlining the three syntheses. Everything is the three syntheses. The first syntheses, productions of actions and passions. This is connective. Productions of recordings, of distributions and markings, recording, disjunctive. Productions of consumptions, of volupta, of anguishes and pains. That's the third syntheses. So that's where those things come in. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. If you think so, you can ask another question to make sure and continue the conversation. Follow-ups are great.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, like, what is the difference between, like, would that be distribution? I mean, is a recording a distribution of, I see coordinates in my translation, but.
Yeah, they say distributions and coordinates that serve as points of reference. It's not really in the original there.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Hello? Oh, Alex, I'll be muting you real quick. That's fine. So the phrase they use is repérage, which is markings, recordings, plottings. You can say coordinates in the sense that, like, when you're plotting something, you're doing so with coordinates. But again, they don't say coordinates because coordinates are the noun. Repérage is the act of marking, the act of plotting. There's a reason that, like, again, I don't get the fucking translation. Like they're turning it into like nouns and specific points of reference. Coordinates that serve as points of reference make no sense. It's really weird to me. Distributions at the repérage, it's plottings. Look, it's the process. Oh, absolutely, Alex. Thank you. Just frustrating, I guess, for me. But again, so the whole point of them is that this tripartite schema they're laying out as the three parts of production. They don't want us to continue the same problem in and of itself, where we go, oh, that's marking. I recognize it. Yay, that's a mark. That's a consuming. That's a this. Because this thing is not the three bourgeois categories, which break out the world into these three things. These three things are themselves productions. You can't escape from production into some other domain of representation or stability or finality. Everything is always that. So when you have the three syntheses, which these things directly map into, the production of production, the production of recording, and the production of consumption, the setup here is that these things are always going and always affecting each other. They're always part of each other. There's no thing broken off of any of this. The coordinates thing is also retroactive. D&G say it in reference to the disjunctive in French. The translators are defining as such. Again, it's a fine translation choice if you already know what's coming. But if you don't, it's a hell of a thing to say up front. The way I read it, consommé is consumed, but consume is more destructive, like how a fire consumes. Consommé is also a soup, by the way. It is also a soup, a lovely soup. So just real quick. Oh, wait, JK, hey, how you doing? What you got for me?
Hi, Brooks. Yeah, I want to ask some clarification of the process takes place within the three syntheses, and that three syntheses is a process that's outside of the Oedipal triangle, right? And is the schizo a product of this of the three syntheses?
So, okay, I mean that's a lot to answer. So step back a bit. The Oedipal triangle as a thing, as it's discussed and as people tend to think of things, is because we tend to look at something that is complete and done, some symbol of a thing, or like with Marx when he's like, oh, this is this type of production, this is nature, this is society. When we have these kinds of categorizations that are placed, it sort of preconditions and pre-assumes a whole bunch of things around it that crystallize meaning based on those things. It's no longer emergent, but instead determined, and determined sort of retroactively. So Oedipus, in the framework they're talking about in traditional psychoanalytic thought, and again, genuinely in contemporary sort of discourse, the assumption is that my relationship with my parents determines everything about me, and that everything about me can be traced back to my relationship with my parents, because that's the number one relationship that matters. If you fucked up later, if you have a problem with this or that, it's because your mom fucked you up or your relationship with your mom's bad. These things are very specific, and it's determined. Their argument is that no, there's no determined. There's none of this shit. Everything is emergent, and that everything is emergent through the process of desiring production. So it's not so much that a schizophrenic or an autistic or a clinical entity doesn't have Oedipus. Like, they're fucked up by Oedipus. They're continually pulled back. It's the first few paragraphs here go through over and over the way that Buchner has Linz return to the church, and he's saying, don't you understand your mother loves you? You need to get back and be a good member of society. This is what you ought to be, ought, because this is what you are, blah, blah, blah. But his free relaxation that he's out wandering, this is actually more interesting in order to talk about the actual processes that make a person than the determined post-production thing. They're relating it to Marx very heavily in this paragraph, because Marx's thing was, prior to him and Ricardo and a few others, people really sort of thought that money made stuff happen, that like you invest money and that's it. And people can go work there because there's money there now. And Marx was like, I don't know, Ricardo, I don't know about this shit. Instead, what Marx was able to sort of pull out of things is actually, there's not this sort of predetermined social order where we go where we are because of our class or this or that, but instead that the labor of man is actually this weird thing that's emergently pulsing through society. And we can understand and see better the way society functions if we follow how labor is handled, repressed, how labor is exploited, how people are exploited through this very particular critical path. They're saying, yes, but go further, because there is no such thing as production, distribution, or consumption, not as things themselves. Just like there's no Oedipus, because there is no such thing as Oedipus itself, there are processes. All of these distinctions that exist are processes that mutually are coextensive with each other. The production process of production is itself a thing. It produces, but it's also producing recordings that then in turn are also, falling back on or dealing with these other things. That the process of everything, and everything is only process, is because it is a process to carry recording and consumption within production itself. And it makes recording and consumption productions of the very same process, the constant thing. So this is when he's talking about the schizophrenic or any of these are all indicators. It's not that there is a schizophrenic. There are people who are clinical entities. Yes, talking about those. But it's that what the schizophrenic does, what the mentally unwell do, is they actually show us how our very process of meaning generation comes about and how they don't work and where they don't connect and where they don't function or how they do function. We're able to actually see how we work in the same way. And that's the setup that they're sort of driving at mostly, as I understand it. I hope that answers your question. It was a big question.
Right. So you think, so you're saying that the Marx is closest to to Deleuze's understanding of this emergent process, but is it possible that Marx also was under the influence of Hegel's master-slave, dialectic and kind of principle? That isn't that kind of master-slave a kind of a Oedipal structure? And was Marx maybe also under the influence of that paradigm?
I mean, they're going to critique Marx a lot. Marx was under a lot of presumptions and had many built in. They're basically, this is Deleuze's thing, and people have attributed it to him, but his thing was taking a philosopher and then doing the thing to themselves, where his joke was dark humor, that he'd basically rape him and then force him to give birth to a horrifying mutated baby between the two of them. And that was his joke, not mine. And the whole thing is because what he does is his work takes Marx and Guattari as well. Absolutely here. Really important not to forget. They take Marx and they go, hey, Marx didn't take his thing to this conclusion. He stopped at this point because he assumed that these things were productive. It was a social critique at large. And that was because, prior to Freud, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about psyches or internal experience. There was some people who did, but really Marx was really focused on that. And they're like, well, Marx's thing, we can go much further. It's everything is production. Everything is production all the way through. And that's the drive that they're saying. And again, this is Marx. They're kind of quoting and playing with a whole bunch of things here, because in Gondries, Marx says outright that production is also immediately consumption. Consumption also immediately production, which is literally what this paragraph's saying. They're just bringing it a little bit further and saying, because of that, it's worth noting that there is no anything that is. Everything is constantly not only being produced, but also involved in the consumption of its own production. And then that consumption itself is also producing as well. Can I respond to this? Okay. Oh God, Noah. In general, this entire level of distinctions between production, distribution, consumption, examined from the point of view of its formal developed structures, presupposes, as Marx demonstrated. There's a thing to quote where you can indent in Discord. Are DNG at all drawing an arbitrary distinction between production, distribution, and consumption by showing how there are formalized structures that remain parallel to Marx's division? i.e. production equating to capital, distribution equating to division of labor, consumption equating to false consciousness. I don't want to say it's an arbitrary distinction. I really don't, because these are parts of the machines and the machinic elements that are sort of created that we're able to identify. I don't think they want us to say that there's no such thing as production like Marx did. Marx didn't go, hey, look, there are these three things. No, the bourgeois have these three elements. And they didn't go, yeah, well, none of it matters, so we only don't need any of it. I don't think that's the case. I think it's actually doing almost the opposite. The system of distinctions presupposes for Marx that all three are happening. We've divided them up for Marx. Like, this is Marx's argument from Gundries that I think they're taking. We divide them up because it lets us go, oh, these people are meant to consume. These things are meant to consume. And we're able to sort of break them into these things because that is the presupposed sort of conditions of capitalism. It seems to be an objective structure that labor and the division of labor is the organization at a material level of things, right? And so the critique he has is that bourgeois economists and they still fucking do this. They're doing this fucking today. They treat production, distribution, exchange, consumption. I know there are others that he talks about, but all of them are talked about as though they're autonomous.
Yeah. And I think, can you hear me, Brooks?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's like part of my question, because they're not autonomous spheres or entities, but I'm curious if what they're saying, the kind of apparent distinctions between production, distribution, and consumption, per a capitalist point of view, might be a parallel where production is deemed as capital, distribution is deemed as division of labor, and consumption is deemed as the capitalist being viewing these elements as fixed. I was curious if they were trying to I just don't know if I'm reading too much into, like, are they trying to show that within capitalism, individuals are able to draw these distinctions?
Step back real quick. So just in this paragraph, because I'm only going to talk about this paragraph, because otherwise you're going to be asking about the entire book. And I'm really...
I'm just trying to figure this part out. I just can't tell if they're trying to do what I'm saying. Or
so just to say, let me say one sentence. There are no spheres or circuits relatively independent. That's the thing that's happening here. It's about dissolving the distinctions and saying those things come about through abstraction and argument. There are no separate spheres. Everything is always immanently production. The tripartite structure that they're talking about, and they're going to talk about how these things function, the three syntheses. This is a structure of desire and production itself. It isn't a reproduction of bourgeois political economy categories. The syntheses are the operations of desire, but it is desiring production as a whole. It's not separate spheres where we divide things or set things up. They appear separate. And this is, again, to me, it's about, they're saying that these three things, production, distribution, consumption here, we have these as formally developed structures. We can show, and we can, like, I can talk about consumption to an insane degree because we've abstracted, we've built it out, and it's actually really interesting. But Marx's entire thing is that, like, all of it is actually at once. And all of it is the procedure of capitalism, because there is no such thing as an independent circuit, an independent sphere. Production's always doing all of these things. That's why when they talk about the three syntheses and how these things function, it isn't that they want people to go, oh, that's where recording is. Boom. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't work unless you also have this consumption and also this production and also these things. And also, like, it doesn't operate like that. You can't get to the singular. You can't get to the opposite way of doing this. Let me go the Platonist representational route. You begin by saying production is actually where this happens. And then we cut it off, and then there's consumption here. And then, distribution, and then consumption. And here's where consumption's at. And you know what? Everything's wrong because in this part of it, we don't have to worry about the rest. Consumption and distribution is good. But right there in production, we need something a little bit better. That's where the problem is. The fuck up there is that you're breaking them into pieces without understanding that they're all coextensive. Because they're coextensive, you can't talk about production as being the thing. You can't talk about it as a singular element or symbolic thing or representation that you can aim at and say, well, that's bad. Instead, it's all of the production happening always at once via indices, not representational elements. Like, not to fast forward ahead. There's no way for me not to. The whole point of the book is that you can't, one cannot tell where the wheat was grown by eating bread. The same is true of if I tell you, or if I'm talking to you about my problems in life, or we see things in the world, we go, oh, that's because of these symbolic connections, or this understanding, or this one part. It's only this thing. It's not all of it. No, it's the very nature of production. The reason that they do the three syntheses, that all of them come at once, is that we can't go in and go, that's the broken piece. We go, oh, fuck, the bread is fucked up. All of the bread being fucked up in particular ways, it's indices. It doesn't point to production, distribution, or consumption as being the broken element because they all are coextensive. They're not trying to reify the categories.
Oh, yeah, I was just curious here in that quote, if the way that it is erroneously broken up is through capital, division of labor, and false consciousness.
It's through representation.
That's the representation. And is that representation, do you think that they're trying to draw a parallel that when people separate production from distribution and consumption, they're talking about capital when they talk about, when they take distribution out of production and consumption, they are only referencing division of labor and false consciousness being consumption.
Well,
so I'm just curious if that's what they're doing, you know?
I see. I don't, maybe.
I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, I think I might be overreading this. I was just curious if.
I mean, we're all overreading it. That's the point.
Yeah, well, fair.
If I were to summarize and try to say it like simply, it's that all of these things are actually moments of a single totality that only appear via the process of representation and the production itself, separate under the way capitalism functions. Capital as a socius, and again, there's no way not to fast forward here, is a particular type of reorganizing of labor and property for Marx, but for them, desire and these three syntheses and how the paralogisms function within them. Like, this is the whole point, is all of it's happening at once, and that includes the social sphere. And the social sphere happening at once determines, categorizes, conditions all of these, and represses. Does that make sense?
Of course. Thanks.
Gushbrush, yes, this is Bergsonian process ontology. He'd say it's a function of the intellect to create these discrete concepts. It's a function of the intellect, a representation. Deleuze would not disagree with Berge here at all. There are other things where he definitely plays with it, but yeah, for sure. What's up, Alex?
So I actually had a question a little while back, but it was because I'm kind of new to Deleuze. So I don't know if this is too big of a question, but my question is there a difference in Deleuze between process and event?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess the question is, what exactly is that difference?
This is like a huge question, in my opinion. Like, if I can chime in here, I think like you're going to be getting into like Whitehead, a bit of Bergson. You're going to be getting into, obviously what process means in Anti-Oedipus versus like the previous works. I feel like, I think even like Badiou like does critique, Deleuze with his concept of the event. So I think it just might be like a lot. I feel like I feel like maybe Whitehead would like be my
I can,
starting point.
I mean, I can speak to it a little bit. It's actually, I don't think it is a lot if you want to get into it. I'm not going to be getting that deep into it, but I do think it does impact how people may understand this paragraph specifically, because as he's talking about the processes of things and the production of things, the singular that we tend to talk about stuff, in logical sense, the way that Deleuze talks about these things is that events are not necessarily the things that happen to, as he puts it, bodies or elements, but instead it's things that subsist. It's the way that we talk about someone dying, because the way that death happens is never actually fully actualized in a particular organization of bodies. It's a way that we understand temporally things processing over time. Alice gets larger. Alice is getting bigger is the one that he opens Logic of Sense with. And that event of Alice getting larger, we can understand. It is this really odd understanding of things, but it's not really a process, right? Because the thing that's happening is it's involving our understanding of Alice was smaller, Alice will be bigger, and the placement of where that sits. Embiggening or to be bigger, these things are never actualized themselves. The processes of things are elements that never actually arrive or pass. It is the pure movement itself. And it's continuous. It is a productive unfolding of things within the duration of everything, within immanence. This opposes it to event pretty specifically, as I understand it. And again, I may be just not speaking exactly to what you're asking about, but they're not simply opposed. Like I could say that it's easy to say that they're opposed because when we have a process that's happening, events arrive at them. Events arise at the process of these things. The sense effects that are produced by production, right? A battle is not any particular gunshot or wound or death, but it's something that subsists and exists across all of them. And they're talking about how process necessarily needs to be emphasized over event, because what they don't want to do, and what a lot of people do with this, they want to avoid treating schizophrenia as a punctual breakdown, the actual event of going insane. That's not what they want. Schizophrenia is on the other side of that line. That's not what they want to do. Like, that's where craziness is, and you're over there. That's what schizophrenia, that's not the point. That they want to instead talk about desiring production as those events, the cuts and breaks of things are not external eruptions, but instead themselves part of the very process of production itself. So if we treat things as what people tend to call events, this privileged moment outside the immanent plane without a grasp of what is producing it, or that it is just part of production itself, we risk doing the transcendent. And this is the reason I'm going, this is Badiou's like entire critique and dislike of Deleuze, which I don't think he makes very good case for, my opinion. Badiou's really big on event. Zizek's huge on event. I was huge on event. Event is a fascinating concept, but for Deleuze, events are only the surface effects of processes underneath it, the sparks, the mist, the foam on the water, not necessarily the largest radical rupture that happens to be there. That tends to be more evental philosophy or singular philosophy. And so this is the drive they're sort of playing with right here. It's not saying that events don't exist or that they don't happen, but instead that they are produced by like the material production of desiring production. That's the thing they want to get to. Does that help at all, Alex?
Yeah, that really does make sense. I guess it would seem that events are less fundamental in that sense.
Events are not, well, this is that it's going to be more complicated. I'd love to say it's that simple. Trust me. It's understanding that these things are coextensive. Like an event, the battle happened. They're never going to say like this isn't some Baudrillardian thing of like the Gulf War never happened. And I get it's not 100% that, but like, that's not what they're saying. They're not saying there isn't like, you don't experience love, and they're not like the worst readings of Nietzsche version of this. Instead, it's like, no, the events, the surface effects that's consistently produced through all of these things, all of it is part of the productive process. They aren't singular themselves. As someone said, for example, Justin said in YouTube chat, so is event a portion of some processes over a fixed time? And that's what they want to get away from, is this idea that it's a series of events is what makes things happen, because there is no series of event. It's instead the consistent process of production that's always generating all of these things. And all of these things that are being generated at the surface, they end up actually affecting the process of production, but they're not like a singular, I made myself happy and now I'm happy. That's not how things work for anybody. But instead, happiness is sort of this process and element that's created. The passions, the voluptas, these things are generated on the surface of all of these things, and abstractions from that as well. Instead of moving event to this transcendent, outside of experience, outside of us, inaccessible to us, as a thing, this privileged event, everything is immanent, and that includes events as well, which are part and parcel of the surface of this. So it's more complex than that. Logic of sense, I think, goes very nicely into it if you're wanting like better than I'm explaining it for the most part. My favorite example he uses is death. When we say a soldier has soldiers dying from his wounds, that is a thing that doesn't exist. No one ever dies from their wounds. You're free to show me the moment of death. They're either alive or dead. There's no quasi-alive moment or photo or thing. No matter how you're recording anything, they're either dead or alive. That weird reality is that over the course of how those bodies are arranged, the photo of it, the measurement of all of it, somehow we have this event that is being generated of dying and he died that happens across all of that. It's not that he didn't die. The fucking dude's dead. Like that, and they're not trying to say any of this, but instead it's the production of the sense of death that comes across all of that, that sort of subsists through bodies. That event is part and parcel and coextensive with the rest of the productive process. Hope that answers. And it's important here because when they're talking about like specifics or elements or these circuits or what is produced or how things are produced or the anguishes or pains, all of these things that are produced are, again, part and parcel of production itself. Everything is so much production that recordings are immediately consumed. And again, I want to talk for a minute or two with the Frenchies about this, but the consumptions themselves are directly reproduced. That the first part of the process is to carry recording and consumption within production itself, to make them productions of the same procedure. And this habitual repetition is the play that, again, how this comes about. Is there actual repetition? Is it the sense of it? Like, how do we get into these places? Like, this is what they're driving towards. So now, French people, I'm going to ask you about consommer, consumes, et la consomme dans les choses direct. Sorry, I'll do it with my Southern American accent. Consommes, consumers, et les consommations directement productes. That's for you, Estelle. I actually have a really interesting set of questions around how this is to be translated, I think, intelligibly. Because the first is consomme. There's a lot of sort of backgrounds of it as a thing, like how it's put together, how it's used, and where it's set up. And the thing that they're driving at, as I read it, and again, you're free to tell me if I'm wrong, But the consumed in the first version is more like using up. Using up. Right? It's like how you consume a thing. All the power on the grid is being consumed. It's not being like, you don't eat it, but it's being used up. It's being consumed. The consommer is destroying, is consummating. That the 2M versus 1M is literally like the OMM versus UM. They both consumed and immediately consummated is what the original says. I get that, but it's not a great. The point for them is the repetition, is the boom, boom, boom. They're playing with it in words. It might be consumed, consummated, boom, boom. But again, immediately presumes that the other part wasn't immediate. But that, again, to me, reads it way out of order. And that's what they have, is that processes are immediately consumed, immediately consummated, which makes it sound like they're happening at the same time. Or that they're, again, I don't like how they translated it. It's technically probably fine, but I do not like how they translated it. I thought I could put inflection on it, because in my head, as I was doing it, was like immediately consumed. Like, I don't know why I thought I could put twist on it tonally. It loses the distinction entirely. But they're intended to be they're used up, consummated, and the consumption's directly reproduced. I'm not sure. I know. I'm not either. I'm not either. Consommé, it goes towards exhaustion. Really? Wait. Exhaustion? How I understand it is the if you were to say, like, in English, how it commonly is translated, the fire consumed the house. That's different than the first usage. Like, it consumed the house. It destroyed it. Consumed and consummated both imply exhaustion. It's all exhausting. This is fair. This is fair. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. I could say consumed, used up, and the consumption directly reproduced. Doesn't work for me either. Feels sexual? Well, this is a consummation doesn't mean, again, this is a very, doesn't mean that way. Consummate is, English is fucking really broken. Like, I don't know how else to put it. English is a really broken, weird language. Consummate in English tends to mean the perfect form of a thing, to be brought to perfection, to be completed. This is not where this comes from. Like, this is not. That's Middle English Latin, not the French version of this. French is its own derivation and usage of it. So it's really annoying. Consumed, finished, and directly reproduced, maybe. 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 I don't know. Yeah, that's going to be annoying. Oh, how LaRousse. Oh, let's look at how LaRousse defines it. Let's do it. Consomme is consume. Well, see again, this is consomme it being the highest degree of perfection. That's consummate. That's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. The consummate artist, for example, which is the phrase, which is the thing LaRousse puts up front. The consummate artist is the perfection. That is more in line with the Latin origination of it. But that can't be the word that they're looking at. Oh, I have to, I allowed cookies. What the fuck? Oh my God. Well, I'm not going through that. Yeah, I don't. Is it a beef problem? Is it chicken consommé? Yeah, I'm not sure. See, it's consommes is I'm going to sound like high school French. Is of the verb consommer. Consommer is to consume. Now there you can say the completion, to sum up, accomplishing, like all of those things. Like all of those things work, but also with that can be the annihilation, the destruction, the end of a thing. So when a fire consumes a building, like that's going to be the best version of this. Like a fire consumes a building. When I say that in English, that's very similar to this. And the way that consume works functionally there is going to be identical, I think, to this, because the fire has annihilated and destroyed it fully. It's also closed out. It's accomplished what fire does. Like it's part of it. And it's also eaten it. Fire consumed the building. But I again, that's consumer, not consomme. What? Consommer. No. I mean, I'm looking at here. You feel free to what do you think, Estelle? For fire specifically, oh God, I'm just going to hate everything. So, right, but, so a consommé, like everyone's making the soup joke, but the soup joke, like the whole point is that it's a finished soup. A consommé means finished. That's what it's where it comes from. That's its thing. It's clarified. That's the whole point is to, a consommé is clarified. It's finished. It's condensed. There's an accomplishment to it. The whole point of consommé is that, like that's what everyone's making soup jokes, but it actually is the same thing. And that's, again, to you've used up, you've finished, you've completed. Sorry. Go for it, please.
Okay, yeah. So consommé, which with the O, is for absorbing. When you're talking in French about goods that are usable, what's the word?
Consumable.
Yeah, bien de consommation, with the O. And consommer with the U.
That's the second one.
Yeah, it's to exhaust something.
Yes.
But and to destroy by fire.
To be consumed by a thing. Yes. It doesn't have to be necessarily fire, but yeah, you would say the same thing, like termites consumed the wood. Like, it doesn't have to be literally fire. Or does it?
Well, not necessarily, yeah.
Brooks consumed a baby. That's just because they're tender. Sorry, it's a terrible joke. Go watch Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. Very, very good show. So the first is consommé. The second is consume. And then
consommé.
And then the third is consommations. Because why not? Shit. They're playing around with how separate words are not separate, these roots. No, they're 100%. This is wordplay. This is 100% wordplay. And like, that's the point that they're playing with it. As I see it, the first is, again, and I don't have the back, but the goal is to sort of get it to immediately consumed, and then consumed in terms of destroyed, and then ending with those consumptions then directly reproduced. So, to say another way, it's what I said before, it's what my notes have. The circuit is total, but also immediate. Recordings are immediately used up. Consumptions are then immediately reproduced. There's no rest. There's no accumulation in another sphere of like output. The whole point is that they are always doing this. And that's why they talk about this is the first sense of process, to carry consumption within production itself. You feel like it's sexual? Well, call it everything sexual for them, but not in the human sexual way. Like, not in the dick vagina or dick asshole or dick mouth or anything or cum or like what we would call sex. That's all non-human sex. Everything is about the connective, and as such, everything is sexual. The non-human sex. It's the big deal to them. Yeah, it's all libidinal economy. Design production is basically the machinery of it. Yeah, these are Lacanian puns. It does feel like that's part of like, I'm trying to figure out how much of this is like, because there's this, the first few paragraphs have so much particular wordplay. And it does feel like a lot of Lacan's shit for Guattari, especially in his critiques of it, the overfocus on the completion. Like that's a big critique he has, that there's no such thing as like a process may be ended, sure, but it's just the beginning of another one. There's no rest for desiring machines. In a Swedish translation, they added a footnote saying this can't really be translated. That's fantastic. And they explain why. Can you copy that in by chance so I can read it? That's fantastic. That's fucking great. Maybe I just put that. Cannot be translated. Maybe that's what I put. That makes me smile. That's fantastic. Learn French is a footnote. Shall I read Leotard or can I understand Anti-Oedipus without Leotard? You don't need Leotard for Anti-Oedipus. Like you may have just heard me say libidinal economy. It ain't the same play. Leotard, no, don't worry about it. You're good. You're good. You're good. But I do think I'm going to change. Is it some cases it better to leave the original French? Well, I've been doing that on occasion. This is not one of those times, because if I were to say immediately consomme, like it's just it's untranslatable in that sense, and it just doesn't work. Things are consumed all the time. They're disposable, replaced, while things that are consumed are being irreparably destroyed. Well, that's how I understood the difference, is in one sense, it's the using up of a thing that can be replenished, replaced, whatever it is. Well, consommer is the destruction, annihilation, the annihilation of a thing. Because like they translate it as immediately consummated, and I hate that, because that, again, the consummation, we're consummating our marriage, we're consummating our relationship. It means to fuck. It means to bring together. It means the perfection of a thing, or the accomplishing, the consummate artist. But they mean it in the sense of like, the fire consummated. Like that's what they mean. The fire consummated the house. Like that's what they mean. And so this doesn't work. It's not helpful to have a page of footnotes reading French noises here. That could be good. French noises. Insert French noises. Insert French noises. Let's see maybe I can find something. There's like no writing on any of this anywhere. So it's really fun to have these discussions. I think it's fun. I don't know. I'm a weirdo. So Estelle, tell me if I'm wrong. Consommer, the consommes thing. This is also consumer. Like in the Marxist sense. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, it's the same verb that you get consommator, which is consumer.
Consumer. Okay. So like when I go to Target and I buy a toy for my kid, I'm a consumer. I'm a like that's the type of consumer type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an economic play. Consumer with the UM. Fuck, what a fucking language. This is to be consumed by it, to be destroyed, to burn with, to be burned with the passions of desire, the annihilation. There's no remainder. There's no secondary. The point that they're making is things become economically processed and then destroyed or dissipate. That's how I read this, that they're saying that it's economically processed consumption followed by consommer, which is the burning, and at consumer, these things just have a beautiful lyrical quality in French that does not work in English. But you could say, if I was to be slightly poetic, and I hate doing this, but everything is so much production that recordings are immediately consumed, burned through, and consumption's directly reproduced. Because the consumed in English, consumer, like I'm a consumer, that again, we're relating it to Marx. This paragraph's about fucking Marx. Then the burned through, expended, destroyed, because it's, again, I like the burned through because we just read the paragraph, the poetry of the overheated factory, the burst and exploded pores. And the next two paragraphs, not to cheat, but we're about to be talking about the flux of things, because recordings don't get used. That's not really the thing that happens with them. They get burned up. Their energy is dispersed without any conservation whatsoever. And that's the point of that. Like, there's a finality to the process that, again, is part of the beginning of others and the distribution there, that they're really going to be getting at soon. Because the energy dispersed without conservation means that these things dissipates. Because when a house is consumed by flames, it's not that there's nothing that ever happened. There's no house. The house was consumed, but the ash and the smoke and the energy and everything was dissipated into everything. And that's what they're getting at. Like a relation between consumption and disjunction. Well, I mean, this is the consumptive. This is the third syntheses they're talking about. Third syntheses is where consumption happens, but it's consumption and then but it's consumption not in the I eat a thing and then it sticks around, but in the consumer consumes and then that energy is then displaced, and ultimately consumptions again become directly reproduced. Immediately consumed and expended. I could say expended. I'm just trying to think of ways I would phrase this. Because the first is for sure consumed. The second is a different type of consumption entirely. Like consumed, I think, is perfect for the first one. Spent, because they're tying this back, and they're going to be tying this back to the accursed share, because the whole point is that everything that is done, even if it doesn't maintain the form, it doesn't stay the thing. Whatever we consume doesn't stay that thing. Instead, the energy of it is spent, is dissipated. It is dépenser, the unproductive expenditure of things. And it's 100% from Bataille that they're pulling this from. And Bataille would say consumed in terms of spent. Dépenser. Dispensed with. Dispensed, expended, because it's the part of this that's important is the language they're using here is clearly not just saying is consumed and gone. It's consumed and the thing is consumed, and then it is dispensed with, the everything is spread and it goes elsewhere, and then the consumption directly reproduced. I'm gonna have to spend time on that. Consumed and reduced and transformed. It's not transformed because, again, it's no longer singular. It's no longer that element. That's the whole point of the Bataillean notion. And I think that's why dépenser, I think, is probably what they are leaning towards. This is the language Bataille used, I think, quite extensively. Yeah. All right. It's gonna be 3 fucking hours of this. It's 2.5 paragraphs ish. Exhausted. So okay. Bataille wrote about dépenser, the idea of dépenser, the idea of dispensing with, or where expenditure is calculated, productive, and aimed at accumulation and return. Consumption exists for production. This is Bataille. This is Bataille. There's no like part of this. This is Bataille. This is Bataille straight through the entire thing. And so because of that, it's important to remember that everything circulates. No energy is lost, right? All expenditure is ultimately some level of investment in other things. This is the whole point of the general economy. And so as we start talking about sort of the two modes of consumption, there's, oh God, that's what this is. It's the two modes of consumption. So there's productive consumption, which is recuperable. That's what this is. That's what it is. And they're just being very funny about it. Fuckers. Jesus Christ. So productive and unproductive expenditure. Productive consumption is consommation, with the two M's, the OMM. And the characteristics of it is that it's economic, it's calculated, it's recuperable. It serves reproduction directly. So for example, I had tea in order to do this. That's productive consumption. I'm consuming this tea in order to deal with you motherfuckers. And it's a whole thing. That's I put gas in a car, and the car consumes the gas to do things. Fuel for machines as a thing. Unproductive expenditure is the other type of consumption, and it's dépenser. Dépenser is his term. These things are incalculable. They can't be recuperated. It is pure loss. But pure loss is fascinating for him because these are things that are spent without return, without intent of return. They're wasted gloriously. Poetry does this. Death does this. Sacrifices do this. Luxury goods do this. Sex does this. They're irrecuperable consumption. So if we have the first, the consumed, these are recordings that are entering into the economic circuit. Because this is Bataille. This is just Bataille. It's incredible. These fucking guys, man. It's Bataille. I'm going to say it's batai, and I'm just going to go with that because that's the consumed and spent. That's going to be the phrasing, and it's 100% batai. Because this is the expenditure of batai. These things are not conserved. It's energy released without accumulation. This is not circulation. This is the burning of it. Because it then is reproduced. Because in this unproductive expenditure, even for batai, these things feed back into production. Not in a way that like you can go, oh, I did this productively, it does this. But because that unproductive expenditure, like for example, sacrifices of food to the gods is his example. Sacrifices of food or animals to the gods, that serves a purpose. Because there is no outside of production, right? There's no, I mean, maybe they're twisting. I'm going to have to spend time with batai on this one. But that's what I'm going to say. Consumed and spent. I'm going to say it's spent. Immediately consumed, spent. That's not how you spell immediately, Brooks. You're just terrible today. That's how I know it's needs to be the end of the thing. Immediately consumed and spent. Utterly spent. I'm going to leave that for now. And I think it's actually going to be, because that's the annotation. Oh, that's right. I can't do that. That's okay. All right. And by the way, if anyone super chats during this, you get to be in this annotation forever. If you haven't been paying attention, I built a little stupid thing. So this is going to be battalion. What the fuck am I even spelling here? What the fuck is wrong with me? Jesus Christ. Battalion. That's not actually a word. Battai's two types of consumption, productive and unproductive expenditure. Build this out. I'm just gonna make a note so I fucking do this more later. Consumed and spent. Yeah, I think that's the setup here because this is isn't this type of battalion expenditure what they call anti-production? No. I don't think So I don't think so. We're going to spend time on batai this week. That'll be fun. We're going to be doing a batai reading this week. That's it. We're doing the notion of dispensing, the notion that depends, the spent. Core idea is that in any economy, right, there's always excess. Like there's no such thing as like in any closed group, there's always excess. That excess has to be expended without return. For example, the sun, it's a solar model. The solar anus comes from this. All of these things are tied together. The sun spends its energy. It doesn't receive shit from us. Sort of. We'll get to like how this goes. Life itself produces more energy than it can ever use. Bodily heat does things like everything produces more than it can use. That surplus has to be spent, and it has to be spent in a way that it doesn't stick around. That's the big deal. This is why it's spent, gone, hands off, done. War is this, by the way, like literally war and murder and violence and all of this. It's glorious expenditure for Bataille, because there's no recuperation of it. Doesn't come back. It doesn't, you don't do war so you can make more money later. Like it's kind of just an end point for a lot of money. You do it so maybe you make money now, but you don't really do the final bit. It's gone. It just fucks you. That's dip and say. This is the thing that exceeds the circuit of production, consumption, and reproduction. Things that are spent without return. That's what I think this is for. We'll spend time on this. This will be really fun. Because they're straight up playing with Bataille here. And that's why voluptas matters. Now that I'm just connecting my translation here to itself at this point. Because voluptas, pleasures, anguishes, and pains. That's what it says. Of voluptas, of anguishes, of pains. Those are Bataillean expenditures. That literally, that's what they are. Erotic intensities, the suffering of people, limit experiences, the pains. These are things that are spent. But for Deleuze and Guattari, they turn this. These are productions. They're not escapes from productions. They're production itself. Son of a bitch. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. That's absolutely what this is. That's what this is. War produces orphans. Yeah, well, war produces things, but the point of it is that, like, there's expenditure without recuperation. People die. You don't recuperate death. You don't recuperate it. This will be interesting. This is going to be fucking interesting. All right, we're going to do a Bataille reading later this week. I got to find the right translation and the right setup. It's going to be its own thing. What can I say? It's the way it works. That'll be a thing. I can't believe I almost hit 80 people during this fucking Anti-Oedipus stream. You know how fucking exciting that is for me? That people give a fuck at that level about this stupid book? I love that. And I say stupid book with all the love that there is. Mostly because I'm at the end of my fucking tiring day. If we stick on for 15 minutes, I can send you over to Sunday, or I can send you to someone who's live right now. Let's see who's live. No one. Are you fucking kidding me? All right, then we'll spend 15 minutes talking about what we're doing this week. I don't see Lucy live. Maybe she is. I hit 100 last week. I know, it's fucking weird. It's exciting. So I'm going to be taking these paragraphs and I'm going to be putting them into the doc. We have, and I need to create just a section for this. I think it's going to be its own project. I'm going to do a little work in the Discord to get these things together. There's going to be a forum for literally ask anything Anti-Oedipus. And when I say that, I mean ask fucking anything. I don't care what part of the book you're in. That's great. These readings, I'm not going beyond the paragraphs. I'm going to do my best not to. Do my best. But then the goal would be anything. Then there's going to be another forum that's going to be about the translation. And that Google Doc, as a couple of you did go in, is taking comments, questions. Why is this translated? You should do this, improve this. And as things get more locked, as time passes, I'm going to be slowly moving things down, putting things into place without comments. All that stuff. Later this week, probably Thursday-ish, we'll do either one of these things. We're going to do a couple streams that are related to this. I'm going to have an open house for Anti-Oedipus every week now. I need to start doing this. I've been wanting to do it. It's been in the fucking Discord. I need to do this shit. And that's another Ask Me Anything. We'll be streaming. We'll be talking. I may be playing video games. I don't know how it's going to go. I need to just do the thing and not get up my own ass about it. The second thing is we're going to do a Bataille reading. We're going to try to do related readings every single week. Not huge, but just like reading through and talking through the ideas that are sort of brought up. Bataille is a given for this one. At this point, as I'm reading, I just cannot get away from the idea that it's Bataille who they're referencing. that'll be maybe Saturday-ish. And then beyond that, we've got a handful of React streams and other stuff. So there's a lot of stuff, but I'm pretty excited to do that. Is AO26 the general tat? That is Ask Anything, and we'll figure it out. I'm going to set it up. So don't go to the Discord right now. Give me an hour, and then I'll do a ping and we'll set it up. That'll be good. And I think that's going to be how we set what we're doing going forward. I think. A couple of things, more housekeeping. LJ on our server has decided to undertake a gargantuan task. Oriental Despotism is one of my favorite historical sociological books that people don't read. It's mostly because it's fucking super out of print. So we want to actually fix that. And we're going to see if we can. And LJ is leading that fucking charge. So in the Discord, ping LJ and be like, hey, LJ, heard something's going on with that. I think we're looking for people to read a chapter, audio, record it, making a collective effort, spend some time with it, that kind of thing. We've got a lot of work that's needed. But if you have a minor amount of time and you just think it'd be fun to take part in, we would love that.
The whole chapter, it's going to be 10 minutes per person maxed every week.
There we go.
We're not gonna ask a person to read a whole chapter and then piece the audio together. That's too much for each person. Just
I can
10
do that.
minutes. Yeah. Well, not everybody have that kind of time, but just one person per 10 minutes, and then depends on how many people, we can even shorten it. It's just 10 minutes is such a irresistible amount of commitment. And this title has been going around, and I've been trying to read it from a structuralist standpoint. And I have some background in Chinese language, whatever culture. It will be interesting.
It's a really fascinating book, I think. But it's hit up LJ. We've got a forum for it. We got a thing for it. Go say hi. We're trying to do that. And then beyond that, those are the big things. We have a bunch of readings happening. If you're unaware, please do join the Discord. It's a huge number of readings now that are kind of fucking with me. Someone, we had what was this morning? It was the was not Twilight of the Idols. It was what was the reading that was right before this? Oh, Nietzsche's Antichrist, which is amazing. We also were about to have our structural anthropology, or we should have. I think I'm running over long and I fucking ruined your reading, didn't I, LJ?
No, I usually just do it on Monday now because it's very unpredictable for Tuesday, and it's been going really well.
Wednesdays, we have Bruno Latour. Thursdays, we have August Nietzsche's Twilight of the Idol. We have Nietzsche in the Vicious Circle every Thursday as well. A lot of Nietzsche. It's Klosowski, technically. And then we have our Spinoza reading Fridays. And from what I understand, we will actually be having it this week. And then we have our Raymond Rier every Sunday morning. It's early for us people in America. 100% worthwhile if you can go. And then those readings are also on YouTube. And then we have our cinema readings, also very early on Sunday. And then we've just got a bunch of readings. It's just fantastic to see all of this. So do join the Discord, discord.gg/DGQC. If you want to support what we're doing, or me specifically, I guess, best thing to do is to head over to patreon.com/DGQC and drop $5 a month, cup of coffee a month. Any stability in income gives me the ability to spend a little bit more time doing this. And also my other project, which is Operation Inflation, because I'm going to be spending the next couple of days also rebuilding the website for that, because we're trying to change things, and we're trying to affect the world. And Kid Not Kin and Becoming and everyone involved have been doing a huge amount of work, and we know that the strategy's changed. In the protest, not last night, but the night before, ICE for the first time began targeting us. And when I say targeting, if you don't, I wasn't there. Fuck, thank God I wasn't there. They started targeting vehicles. They started targeting our stuff, setting it on fire, costumes and medical equipment and other things. There's a few live streams that captured it, and it's really fucking insane that they're actually targeting. Because if you don't know what Operation Inflation is, it started as kind of like a random joke. We got donations to go run out and give people costumes. I have reasons for it. I'm not going to fucking defend it to people. I don't give a shit if you don't understand what we're doing. But part of it is we've basically become, because we have enough donations rolling in, we have medical equipment, we have cleaning stuff, we have eye wash, we have masks, we have costumes, we have hand warmers. It's not as cold as Minneapolis here, but it's not exactly warm. And all of those things, we've become a central supplier for, and we're pretty happy with it. And we got a bunch of black blockers and mutual aid people who have been using us. They targeted our shit and burned it. And it really is just awful. They have this bucket of Kid and Joey and Becoming. They have this bucket of all the ordnance that they just collected, all the spent shells, dozens of them. If you haven't seen the videos, it's horrifying. And it's just, they just are peppering and just trying to, they're changing their tactic. We know it. We know it. We knew it. And yeah, the protests hit a nerve. It's a nice way to put it. On Martin Luther King Day, we worked with a couple people, including the Quakers, including indigenous protesters, including Chicken Guy. If you don't know Chicken Guy, famous Chicken Guy, and his group, to stage a sit-in at ICE where Pink Frog, our lovely mascot, Becoming, if you know Kid Not Kin, his wife Becoming, got bear maced, pepperballed, and really just the shit kicked out of her as she was arrested, which then led to people getting much angrier. And then after the death and the murder of by ICE of another protester, the people were a lot angrier. And that has been building on ICE's side because they've been sending people elsewhere. It's been really a lot. How is all that threatening enough to warrant targeted destruction? Their job is to create terror. ICE doesn't exist to actually enforce crimes and laws. As much as people talk about it, oh, they're here to get rid of illegals and blah, blah, blah. That's not really it. They're here to terrorize illegals. It's why they're doing the tactics they do. You don't have to do things this way. As I laughingly pointed out, the bureaucracy that existed under Obama deported far more people, by the way, than Trump has in the last year. Tons more, like a multiple more. And no one cared because they did it in a way that was just like the normal bureaucratic American way. Be upset about it, however, like that thing, versus what they're doing now, which is just swarming entire areas and arresting everybody and then letting people go who they end up not wanting to deport. I'm doing a piece that's going to be coming out tomorrow. I haven't done a lot of these recently because I have a lot of, I get emotional and I don't want to like get in trouble with how I say things. So I try to be a little bit more dispassionate, but, the way that, let me find the stats. Cause a lot of people don't know how horrifying it is. So as of right now, this is a brand new report. I can link to it. The number of people held in ICE detention on any given day is 75% more year on year than it was last year, any day. By the end of November 2025, ICE had 104 more facilities for detention than the start of the year. The Trump administration dramatically changed the profile of who's being arrested by the use of quote unquote at-large arrests in American communities by 600%. 6 times. Now, at large arrests means they go into an area that's predominantly a place that you might find people who are illegal, parts of LA, parts of Minneapolis, whatever, and they arrest people at large. They do large raids. That's not a thing that they used to do. Like, very rarely. If you watch any of these, like, there are shows about this in, like, Australia has their Customs and Border Patrol police. They go do raids. They go through like restaurants and they check everyone's stuff. We're talking about like a city block, and they just arrest everybody. There are, as of now, funding for 135,000 beds in detention centers, concentration camps, through the end of 2029. Yay. So the number of people, so again, the number of people in any given day is 75% increase. But who those people are, all of this that we've talked about, it's a change in arrest patterns. It's a change in how long people are held, where they're held, how they're held. The number of people with no criminal record being held in ICE detention on any given day versus 1 year before is a 2,500% increase. It's a 25x increase of people with no criminal charges being held indefinitely in concentration camps versus the year before. Because this should always happen. Like, of course, they had people who were swept up. Like, they've always done this. But again, the goal is different. It's not about law enforcement. It's about terror. So as they start going after protesters, the goal of this wasn't to kill a guy when they shot that guy. The goal was to let protesters know their place. The goal was to let us know our place. The goal, like we know we've been on domestic terror watch lists. We're not stupid. Like, we've been on the list for a while now. Our names are in it. Kid and I made the call a long time ago that we weren't going to use our fake names, that we were just going to do the thing. We weren't going to hide. Enjoy that. It's a terrifying feeling, by the way, knowing that you're on such a list. Like Heather today, my wife, the kids, they're delivering these things, working with is she being followed? We have to be worried about these things. It's genuinely terrifying because the goal is fear, because fear explicitly feeds fascism. That's it. Being scared of fascism feeds fascism. Being scared of the police feeds that. Being scared of illegals feeds fascism. Being scared of the people who are scared feeds fascism. Fear feeds fascism. Fear feeds fascism. That's it. That's their goal. That's all they want to do. That's it. That's why they target what they do. That's why they do the damage they do. And that's why we're not stopping, because we don't give a shit. This is the time. This is the time. This is the time to do the thing. That's it. This is the time to do the thing. This is the time to do the thing. It is time to understand that we are way past them being Nazis. We are way past them being an analog to Nazis. We are way past this being a theory or thought experiment. We are way past a lot of stuff. You need to get involved in some capacity. Go do a thing. Go help a person. Go do whatever it is. If you need resources, you can. I'll be around. We're going to be building out a huge set of resources because somehow we've become a lightning rod for a lot of stuff. Operation Inflation has been talked about by a lot of people. We're really flattered, to be frank. And we're really excited by the number of people who were helping start up little local chapters in all sorts of places. Because that's the goal. We want people to feel empowered to protest and to do things. Because as soon as you give them your power, as soon as you give that up, you've let them win. And this will end very badly if that's the case. If that's what we do. This will end very badly. We don't have a lot of time. We really don't have a lot of time. there's a series of books. My piece pulls a little bit from them. But there's a couple source books on the Third Reich, on Germany, on the Weimar Republic, on everything that was going on there, because it's important to understand how people wrote about these things, how people talked about these things, the way that they came about and the way that they set up, because we are way beyond things. We're way beyond this being an idea. Did you see the ICE agent who said, "You raise your voice, I erase your voice"? We've had ICE agents say a lot of things to us. I got to tell you, Kid Not Kin and Becoming, it has been amazing to watch them and be able to see people who absolutely every day, he's fucking down there. Well, almost every day. We have shifts and all kinds of stuff. Because you need a fucking day off. That shit'll tear you apart. He was doing a lot for a long time, and it's just not good. Luckily, he's able to. But the ICE agents are very happy to say horrifying shit all the time. They love saying it. Okay, you can go back through. I tend to recommend Pretend Media. Pretend Media is there every single night. Pretend Media has done wonderful work just documenting. He's this like big guy who just walks around with the camera and just is like, what the fuck? And it's not even partisan. He's just over time. Like, I think he began like kind of, critical, but but I think over time, just being there, seeing these people, how they interact, seeing how the chuds interact, seeing how the chuds work. It's like absolutely awful. And it radicalizes you just seeing it. And Pretend Media is very, very good for this. It's very, very good for it. Yeah, it's going to get worse. I'll end up doing a stream at some point, and we'll end up talking about this weekend, especially. I'm trying to reserve political streams because I tend to get really too into it. But if you don't think protesting in what we're doing works, good for you. If you don't think pressure works, Greg Bovino has been removed from his position. Yes, Trump is still in power. If you have a fantasy in your head that we're protesting to get Trump out of power tomorrow, you don't have a grasp of how anything functions. Kristi Noem and her fucking bunch of assholes are on thin ice already, it turns out. If you haven't seen the leaks, it's great. Stephen Miller has been kind of exiled out of the White House. There's actually a lot of shifts. Trump doesn't like upsetting certain people. He wants to be seen as cool by them. And this went way over the line. Kyle Rittenhouse, Asmund Gold, fascists left, right, and center were upset about this. That's good news. As awful as it is, it means that there is pressure. There's counter pressure. It means there's rifts. There's things to be taken advantage of. It means what we're doing matters. What you're doing matters. What you're doing can matter. That's it. So with that, I got to bounce. I got to go make myself some fucking food. White and male polling is down 8% and 3% after this, which cares. It's 100% what he cares about. And here's the thing. He doesn't get that unless there is like a real thing. Like I was talking about if this happened under Obama or Biden's watch or George Bush the first or whatever, what they would do is indict the guy who shot the ICE killed the guy from ICE who killed. They would indict him. They'd make a show of it and they would change nothing else because that's how this is supposed to work. They don't want to do that. And as awful as that is, and it's a thing to be very aware of, everyone who protests, I think, is aware of it. That they didn't do that means that's the new floor. Like, it's terrifying. And you still got to go out. We still got to go out. You still got to go. And it's just, you got to be aware that this is where we're at. And it's only going to get worse from here and scarier from here. And don't let it. Don't let it. But yeah, I appreciate all of you for being here. I'm going to send you over to Sunday. If you can, support Operation Inflation, operationinflation.com. Money goes to costumes and medical stuff and all that fun stuff for people at the protests. We're setting up elsewhere. I'm rebuilding a website because we're aiming at doing the State of the Union. That's my big push. It's going to be the State of the Union. We're trying to show up there. It's about a month away in DC. And we're going to be doing an activation there. And we're hoping to have a lot of people show up because we think a lot of people will. We think a lot of people will. And we want to be able to support that. So if you want to take part, don't hesitate to hit us up, hit me up, join the Discord, join anything. We love having you around. And with that, I will see you all soon enough. All right.